Jack, what a time to be alive.
Something like that.
I was thinking if aliens came down to Earth again, and you were the first guy they saw, and they walked up to you and they did the little thing and they said, Jack, what goes on here? What would your response be?
uh, well, I guess it depends on their frame. What kind of civilization they have. They may have already become a genderless gray men, and evolved into that. So there's that. So, you might have to flatter them. But beyond that, I mean, obviously, there are a lot of things that are a mess, but we don't really have any other context aside from the world that we live in right now.
Right.
As much as we'd like to imagine that we know what it's like to have lived 50, 100, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 years ago, we don't. So, I mean, that tends to be a fantasy with people a little bit, that they like, I wish that I lived in X amount of time. Like, well, how do you know you weren't a slave?
Right.
Because there's a lot of that, like there's a push really towards really a neo-medieval system of serfdom, I think, that is happening right now. And, lots of people were serfs in the past. They weren't all Achilles. So, it's everything's about context.
Yeah, I did a post on Twitter a while back that kind of went viral because Twitter is really all about timing. But I said, and of course, it brought the trolls out, as it always does. Uh, Basically, if you lived in a primitive society, what would your role be? And basically, what this did was I like to get in people's heads and find out, what they're thinking. It could be a dream of theirs. It could actually be, if I say, hey, you know what? I would have been a samurai. There is something perhaps missing. There's a void in that person that makes them hold on to that little boy or little girl dream that they had, that I want to be this when I grow up, or I want to be that. And it, especially in this society, it tends to stay with us, until death, because we don't live the same way we used to. And people were saying, I would have been a warrior, or blacksmith, or the hunter. And there was like 90% of people would all have done the highest respected jobs in their tribe. Then, of course, the trolls came out, and all these people talking about, they would have been this and they would have been that. You probably would have been a peasant. And it kind of pissed me off. It really kind of pissed me off. And I thought about it. It's like, you know what? They're exactly right. Because the peasants really outweighed the majority of the warriors back then, because you had to have them to get stuff done.
Yeah. I mean, they're the foundation of any kind of society, really. I mean, that's, the warriors. I mean, I think it's Thorstein Veblen, we're at the Theory of the Leisure class. And he talked about, like the upper classes have the regalia and the imagery of power and fighting, because that's how they attain their power. But a lot of people like to associate themselves with that. Of course, this question is the same as the ancestor question. Everybody thinks they're related to Charlemagne, and in some way they might be, but like not in any real way that matters.
Right.
So everybody's Cleopatra. They were Cleopatra in a past life. They were never a peasant, so. Yeah, I mean, the reality is that, who would have been in a past life? I mean, that's almost, it's a fun thing to think about, but we don't really know. I know that I came from generations of like odd jobbers and fishermen on my father's side. So, I probably would have been an odd jobber or a fisherman, not necessarily. I mean, we do have a lot of opportunity right now. I mean, the world's changing very fast, but we, still have a lot of opportunity. I mean, to rise up, if that is, if it's in our ability to do so. There is still some meritocracy left. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't have been able to publish a book in 30 years ago, really, because I would have had to go through the New York establishment to do it. So there's all kinds of different ways to look at that problem.
Yeah. And speaking of the books, it's kind of funny because when I went back, I went back in started reading Becoming a Barbarian again because I think it was 2 years ago. I hit a really low point, and I didn't get start reading your work because I think The Way of Men came out, what, 2016 or 2011?
2012.
12.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I didn't get a hold of it till 2018. I kept hearing about it. And I saw some of your essays online, and people were like, "Hey, you need to read that." And I'm like, who the hell's Jack Donovan? And this was back when you were still with OPWW.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked up the book and I started reading it. And I swear to you, I shit you not, I didn't get a third of the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Put it down and I said, this is not for me. And the reason why, I had hit a low point and I had developed a severe case of one-itis. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had to self-evaluate psychologically. And what I learned was that I don't deal with loss very well. Could be pets, could be people, could be, there's a hole in my guitar. I'm still not over it. Accidentally put a hole in that. When I lose things and things get damaged, it's very torturous to me. And the older I get, the worse it gets. I'm 41 now. Mm-hmm. And I was reading The Way of Men and I was like, I don't give a shit about a tribe. What is this? And the reason why is because I had that lone wolf, Sigma male, I got to do it on my own mindset. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the problem with a lot of guys now, because it had nothing to do with your writing. It wasn't that the writing was shitty or anything, I promise you. It just, I had that wrong. It was just wrong timing. And this was before I read The Rational Male. So I read The Rational Male, which completely fixed me and all my problems immediately. And I went and I saw, well, this one's got, because my whole brand at the time was based upon the concept of barbarism, because I'm heavily into Robert E. Howard, because Robert E. Howard embodied what he wrote. He was an actual boxer. He did believe in barbarism and that civilization is not a boon, it's a bane. It set us all back. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, this one's got barbarian in the title, like a 3-year-old. I'm going to read this. So I read
That's a good title. That's what that is.
Right, that's a good title. And I said, this whole tribal thing. Well, lo and behold, as I'm reading Becoming the Barbarian, it more eases you in to that aspect. And when I went back the other night, I said, I'm going to talk to Jack about this to see if he's ever run into that with someone else. And it specifically states right there on like the first page, this should be read after The Way of Men. And I'm like, fuck. So I'm afraid of sounding like an idiot when I say it, but I think a lot of guys who have lost their way and they get into that lone wolf mentality, perhaps they should read Becoming a Barbarian first and then go into The Way of Men. I think it should be, if you can read it the way it was written and the way you intended them to be read, then it should be read that way. But I think if people pick up The Way of Men and they just don't know, it just throws them into that, because The Way of Men to me is a legit field manual. It goes in and it tells you, if you get a group of your peers and, some accoutrement and head on out to the woods or to an island or whatever and take this book with you, you're good to go. And Becoming a Barbarian just kind of set the stage for The Way of Men. So I kind of view it as a prequel instead of a sequel in a way. And I don't know if you've ever run into that with anyone else before.
Not necessarily. It's because I definitely do feel that one builds off the other, but it is, I think it's a slightly more political book in that it addresses some of the bigger concerns that I was concerned with at the time. And some of the ideas of, trying to fit yourself as a very individual person, which I obviously am, into a bigger group or context, and what you'd have to give up to get there, and what our ancestors would have had to give up to be part of a group, or that was just natural because the people that you're surrounded with are your only people. It's not, you can live in LA or New York or whatever, and really just fuck people over every day for the rest of your life. And you probably won't even run into them, you won't, but you can't fuck over people who you have to deal with all the time, because there are consequences to that. And so it's a different way of thinking. And I think that, maybe in small towns, people have a little bit more of a, I live in a small town right now, and there's definitely more of a vibe of like, you don't necessarily want to go down and cause a scene at the grocery store, because then you have to go deal with that every day, because there's only 2 grocery stores.
Yeah.
So you have to deal with things in a different way that I think that our ancestors would have been more familiar with, but maybe you could get away with in ancient Rome, because giant metropolitan cosmopolitan city, and you could probably go around in different neighborhoods and fuck people over in ancient Rome and get away with it for a while. But in a modern world, you can get away with a lot more. And I think that we have that, like you said, there's a lot of people who have that mentality that they don't need anyone else. And actually, I think if anything, since I wrote that book, I found that out more about myself. I always thought of myself as being kind of antisocial. And since I wrote that book, since The Way of Men, and then Become a Barbarian and so forth, and just moving forward in life, I realized, and even with this whole like lockdown bullshit or whatever, like I do a lot better if I'm around, some other cool guys, because I think that's something that a lot of modern men really miss. I mean, you can aspire on your own to do whatever, but I think that if you're surrounded by a bunch of other guys who are leveling up, and that's a pitfall as well too, because if you surround yourself with guys who just need a group of guys, they might not be the best guys,
right?
And so that's a struggle, because they're looking for something because they don't have anything. And the struggle is to find yourself around groups of men who are better than you in something, and who you admire and whose honor you really admire. And if you're around guys like that, I mean, I think that there's no way that you don't do better, because you're thinking, oh, well, so-and-so's just going to judge me for that if I really fuck up like this, so I have to do a little better, because you can make all kinds of excuses for yourself. I mean, intelligent people are fantastic at rationalizing. I mean, I could rationalize any damn thing. I could come up with all kinds of psychological reasons and reasons why it's okay for me to do something that's bullshit. So you really have to keep an eye on that. But if you have people around you who share the same values as you do, they'll be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that? That's ridiculous. And so, it's something that, you don't want to be like overly drunk around a whole bunch of guys who you admire, or you don't want to be like, you just don't want to screw up in a way that you could if there were no consequences and no one to look up to. Yeah. And so I think it's important for men, and I think that they convince themselves and rationalize that they don't need that. But I think that you're going to be better if you have that. And that's a struggle that I'm facing right now. I live in a small town. It's like trying to find dudes who are, not to be it was snobby, but like better than me. I want dudes who are better than me, to be my friends, and who I really admire and who I want to emulate, and who are going to influence me. And they always say you're it's the cliche, like that you're the sum of the group of 5 people or whatever who you talk to the most or whatever. And so, I mean, that's really important. And so, it's just an ongoing thing that you have to look for in life.
Yeah. And that was something that was really important that stood out the way that stands out in Way of Men, because, guys go around and it is a fact that men are largely validated by sex, probably even more so than money. I think that, I try to teach people, people I coach that you don't chase money and you don't chase women. Okay. If you make yourself more high value, the women come. If you find problems to solve and value to provide, and they're normally symbiotic, then the money will come. That's what it is. And men go around and they settle for, mediocrity because they need to pay the bills. And they chase women because that's what they want. They want the sex. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of men don't understand is that sex drive is not just the desire to, bust one off. That is our desire to create as a whole. And, without getting too woo-woo, I mean, that's what we come from. We come from divinity. We're a part of divinity. And men go around, trying to impress women when they need to start getting that validation from other men. Because when you're trying to impress women, I mean, it's pretty much like a kicking a dead horse. I mean, they're either going to be into it or they're not, and they're into it for like 3 minutes until then, because they got the attention span of a hummingbird anyway. And if you have other men around you who are going to hold you accountable, and of course I'm paraphrasing, but to be in high regard in the eyes of other men is more paramount than being high regard in the eyes of women, because you're going to fight so much harder when you have a group of men to hold you accountable. They're not going to dog you into the ground when you fuck up. They're going to say, hey, this is what you did. You fucked up, but here's what you need to do to improve. And I wouldn't do that if I were you, or I would do it this way or something like that. And it was something that I just didn't understand at that time. And when I found, I got a circle of about 10 right now. 9 of them are online, because they're all over the place. And of course I have my best friend, but he's in Atlanta. I'm in North Carolina. And, but I need that. And anytime I have an idea, I go to one of them. I have, the blog that I write for, Barbarian Rhetoric. The guy that runs that, Nathan, he's kind of like my indirect mentor. And the podcast wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be writing if it wasn't for him. Mm-hmm. If I go to a girlfriend, or I go to my mom, or I go to my boss, if I'm working at a regular job, they're not going to be able to give me that same feedback, because either they don't care or they want you safe. But men are going to push you, and they're going to say, hey, this is a shitty idea. I don't think you should do this. And this is what Nathan did with me. Is he said, look, because I kid you not, Jack, I spent 3 months trying to learn WordPress. I quit. I can't. People go up there and they say, I can build a computer. I worked as a freelancer doing computer repair and upgrades for years. Light networking, all that kind of stuff. Cannot figure out WordPress to save my life. And I went to Nathan, and he was like, dude, I can feel your animosity through the computer all the way over here in Illinois. I can feel it. He says, but look, here's the thing. You're not a blogger. And I needed to hear that. I didn't need to hear you can do anything you put your mind to, because that's what people tell you. And that negates whatever gift you were given. So right. I can't be an airplane pilot, not because I don't apply myself, but because I can't. So I've tried 100 different things, WordPress being one of them. Nathan said, look, this is not what you do. You're not a blogger. He said, I'm tickled to death when you write for me, but you're a coach, and you speak, and you inspire people, and you do this, and you're able to give people a platform to tell their stories with the podcast. And I needed that. And I never would have gotten that if I didn't have other men around me to hold me accountable and call me out. If we get into a group, a couple of months ago, we were in a group, and one guy said something. He said, oh, sorry. And everybody just unloaded on it. And so we don't apologize here. We don't apologize to other men. That's bullshit. Don't you ever say you're sorry again. The guy's like, okay, whatever. But that's what men do. Yeah. You got to hold each other accountable. And I think it's paramount. And I'm glad I went back. I stopped about halfway in between becoming a barbarian and started going back and forth between the two. So it's paramount for those listening that you need to find a tribe. If it's you and 2 other people, you need something, because you're not going to have your family wants you safe, but and your kind of sort of associates don't really care what you do. They don't have any advice for you. So that close-knit band of men that you create, that you form, that tribe that you create, it's just paramount to your well-being. And it took me so long to realize that. I wish I would have learned it sooner.
Yeah, you really have to get advice from someone who understands what you're doing. You know, like someone who understands what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish and what you're really about. Because if you're getting advice from people who don't understand that, you know, like then, you know, the advice is for someone else. Really, you're not getting the advice that's tailored for you. And if you have people, you know, men who are really close to you who understand what your mission is and what you are good at, I think that's when the advice becomes a more useful. I mean, I always go through that myself. I'm like, who can tell me how to be Jack Donovan? Like, who understands what I do enough to understand like what I'm good at and what I should never do? You know? I I mean, like there was been, a lot of, and I'm not saying I couldn't do it or wouldn't do it, but like when I go to 21 convention, they're like, so you do coaching, right? What do you do coaching? I'm like, I don't do coaching. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what that is. I mean, and now I've talked to a couple people, and I feel like I could probably do that, but it's not really my focus of what I do. I'm a writer, I'm a writer, and I create cool imagery, and I can come up with symbols that no one else can come up with, and I can do things in that way. And so that's kind of what I have to be focused on. But if I've a bunch of guys telling me you need to make ClickFunnels and make yourself a coach, maybe that would work for a lot of guys, but it's maybe not the right thing for me. And so to play to my strengths and to be also the best use of my time, because you have to have other people who understand, like, well, what do you really want to do?
Right.
Not like what you can do, because I can do a lot of things, but what do you really want to do? And what do you want your contribution to the world to be? And what you do should be in line with that. So you have to be around guys who understand that. Because a lot of people are like, hey, why don't you do this? But they don't really understand the whole context. Then, that advice isn't really useful.
People always get into that, it goes back to that whole apply yourself and things like that, because they don't teach kids that perhaps you're artistically gifted, but you're not academically gifted. Like myself, I'm a great singer-songwriter. My dad went to one of the most prominent universities in North Carolina on a basketball scholarship and majored in math. He later became a math professor and a treasurer, and he started his own business. He was a general contractor. The two things I suck at the most are math and basketball. Mm-hmm. So it skipped the generation. That's proof, right? And it's not that I didn't try. I loved basketball. All I wanted to do was play basketball and baseball. And I wanted to play football, but I was too small, because 7th grade, you had to be 100 pounds and I was 80 pounds. 8th grade comes around and it's like, okay, I'm 100 pounds. I gained 20 pounds. All right, here we go. You got to be 120 pounds, because there's a different level of liability when you got little kids there. So you got to make sure they're big enough to take the hits. So it just kind of, and then you got, at the same time, you got everybody telling me, hey, you can do anything you put your mind to. Well, apparently I can't, because I have my mind on fucking football, but I'm too small. So you're telling, and they indoctrinate these kids.
Yeah.
There is no assessment. Everything is it's always generalized. So your assessment tests are generalized. Your physical fitness tests are generalized. Your academia, all that it's all general. And kids can't pay attention for 8 hours a day. That's why I'm fully support homeschooling. But people get into that mentality of you can do it. And when I got in league with, because if you go complain to your parents or your associates or something like that, they'll be like, oh, misery loves company. They'll give you a little bit of comfort, and they'll say it's okay. You'll get there. You'll figure out something. But if you get in a group of men who, like you said, they want to help you figure out what you're good at, they're going to call you out on stuff. They're going to say, okay, so basically what you're telling me is you suck at that and you don't need to do it. So why are you still focusing on that? Because women focus on things that they can't do and cry about it, and you don't need to do that. Right. And you're only going to get that with a group of level-headed, better than you guys. And but coming out of the rabbit hole, what would you say your ratio is of alone time to group time? Because there's a lot of you just out like on Instagram, just by yourself, just living the dream, man.
Dudes don't like to get their pictures taken. That's the other thing. It's not everyone who wants to be on my Instagram with me. It's like for a variety of reasons, and like my best friend, I'm going to go out shooting with him, I think next weekend, and he doesn't have an Instagram. He doesn't want to be on the internet. Like he's not about that. And so so like, I'm sure he'll end up pushing the button for me when I take some pictures, but like he won't be in the pictures. So a little bit of it is about that, because I I often have people with me that you can't see in my pictures, you know,
Okay.
but you know, it's whether they're the right person to be in the picture. And the reality of Instagram is that people want to see pictures of me.
Yep.
If for whatever reason that's the brand. And so if I just went out, you know, I've really thought about it a bunch just for myself to go out and take, because I like taking photographs anyway, you know, capture some of these beautiful sunsets or whatever, but you know, no one's going to like a picture of a sunset taken by me. They're going to they want me to be in the picture. So it's a little bit of that, but I would actually like to have, I would probably err towards more group time personally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't really have access to that right now, in because of the world situation, and also just because of where I live. But like I have a lot of good friends in Portland, and obviously, like you said, I have friends all around the world. That's why this, you know, me having a podcast is, you know, like entertaining, at least this year, because I at least get to talk to my cool friends, you know, who are all in different places and who I would really never see. And so that was really good because I got to get that feedback, at least in you know, virtually.
Yeah.
But I would personally, it's probably good that I don't always have it, because I would probably err towards like, let's go do some stuff, and always be doing stuff with a group of dudes. But I obviously, to do my work, I mean, like the guy I live with was going out to the coast this weekend. I'm like, well, I still have to write this book. It's got to get done by November. So I'm not going to go to the coast. And so I could do all kinds of stuff like that. But, you know, like, especially when you're writing a book, you have to kind of just make yourself work, even if you don't even do anything that day. It's like, yeah, computer, and the magic happens sometimes. So, but yeah, like I definitely have said, like, yeah, I miss being around a group of people. When I worked out when I had a tattoo shop at a powerlifting gym, that was great. That was
that sounds like the ideal life. That's everything in one building.
Yeah, I mean, I barely even tattooed at the time. I mean, like by the end of it, I was barely even tattooing because you know, like I was making more money from doing T-shirts and books and stuff like that. I was like, you know, it was just kind of a reason to have a space there. But yeah, I had dudes who come down and talk to me all day, you know, like as they came in for their workouts or whatever. And some of those dudes are still my friends. And I got a lot of feedback from dudes who were obviously trying to improve themselves in some way. And that's the kind of guys I like to be about. So I'd actually like to find that for myself again at some point in life, because I think that's very helpful. And then the other thing is that, you know, with pictures and stuff, not to go too far into that, but, you know, like there are a lot of pictures of me doing ritual and things like that out of my land. And a lot of times now, because I've learned from mistakes that I've made in the past, because in my mind, it's all part of what I do, you know, but if someone's coming out to have a specific experience, or, you know, that's kind of, they're there for that. They're not there to be extras in my photo shoot, you know, and so a lot of times that's the case as well. You know, dudes want to, and then also as you hang out with a lot of these special forces dudes, they don't want their pictures online.
No,
they have security issues and things like that they need to worry about. So, you know, I have a lot of cool friends that I can't photograph. So yeah, but I know I've noticed that actually that's a thing that like I've always tried to, you know, work on. I need more pictures of me around dudes, but it's not that I don't have any friends, but you know, it's always just pictures of me online, because you know,
it's like
how many
books are all a lie.
I mean,
they're all lies.
Yeah. I mean, like we went out. I mean, it was the funniest thing. I really I went out hiking. I went to Utah and I went out hiking with Josh Tyler. He runs a Savage Gentleman, and he's a you know, has been a professional MMA fighter, and but he does the same thing that I do. We have the same job basically. So, you know, we both go out hiking and then like get to the top of the mountain. We both pull out our tripods, and I'm like, you get it. You get what my job is, you know, and we you know, we had a great hike, had a great talk, whatever, did all the things that you would normally do. But there's also that element too. And a lot of guys just don't have that in their lives, so they don't understand it. But yeah.
I mean, you're for all intents and purposes a public figure. So that, and you use a top of the line camera as well. I mean, hell, even when you were shooting pictures with your phone, they look good. And it's kind of part of the program. It doesn't show narcissism. It's nothing like that. But I didn't hike to the top of this fucking mountain and not take a picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna take the
guy I live
best
with
picture.
I'm gonna be one of those Instagram deaths because you know, I probably wouldn't go stand on the edge of that friggin' cliff, but man, that's a good shot. I got to do it. So I'll go do stuff that I wouldn't normally do. Just he's like, you're gonna back off. We're gonna be one of those dudes who walks off the back of a cliff one of these days, just
right.
trying to get a shot.
Your post-mortem Instagram, your last pick is going to be you. Toppling off. Yeah.
Well, I'll shoot at high speed so you get everything on the way to, like as I'm going. It's fine on my camera. But no, I mean, it's not really about that. But I mean, I think what I do personally and because again, my talents and my interests and what I think I bring to the table that, that I have that maybe other people don't is that the aesthetic sense. And I want to see things in a mythic way. Yep. And I did that even with, when The Way of Men came out. It's not here, let me be myself and talk about that story. What voice do they need to hear it in?
Not that one.
Where does this have to come from? And people are just so interested in being real. And I'm like, well, why don't you be bigger than that? Why don't you be mythic? And, that's kind of what I've tried to do, at least, present kind of a mythic image that is aspirational, because that's what I'm really all about. I mean, I think that I wrote that book, Sky Without Eagles. And that's a theme that's stuck with me for a long time. Just not necessarily that essay particularly, but the idea of Sky Without Eagles, the idea of there being no high idols to look up to, because I think that men need that. Men need things that are aspirational, and don't just show me. I mean, God, the stuff that's happened with the virus and everything has been like a bunch of people, even though they're millionaires, which I don't understand. I mean, I can, I'm not a freaking millionaire, not even close. And I'm set up with a decent camera and have everything going. And then you have all these celebrities sitting on their home, like staring into their laptops like retards. Like really, you can't get set up a little bit better than that? This is your job. Right. Yeah. But I mean, I think that's valued by a lot of people. Like, oh, look, they're real. They're not, everything they see. And I think, but I don't go to the movies to see they're real. No. I go to see something higher and more interesting and better than that because it's aspirational.
Right.
I don't want to see ugly people on fucking TV. I want to see people who look good. I mean, I want to see a world that's beautiful, not a world that's, the real is, everybody has to do basic human stuff. But you don't really need to see me, making my stupid egg whites and with Velveeta in the morning. To keep my macros right, do
you do that? You do that for real? That's your breakfast?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That is what I've eaten so far today. Because Velveeta cheese slices are 40 calories a piece, and that really fixes the whole egg white problem. So that's Velveeta and egg whites. I've been eating the same damn thing for breakfast for like 2 years.
Jeez.
And that's just what I need, and that's what I worked out and figured that I liked. Because you start out doing it, the egg whites with sriracha or whatever, and then I don't want to eat that in the morning anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So like I found a way to work around, and so you have these little patterns that you get into, and then a little while I'll walk in and make my turkey sandwich that I eat every damn day. I mean, but we all do stuff that's boring and mundane and whatever. But I think that it's more. That's why people want to see you on the top of a mountain. They want to see like this something that would be in a painting. Before like realist movements and so forth. If you had a king or a figure, I mean, they'd have themselves pictured in a particular way, to look regal. Or like the emperors and so forth. They have the lion's head of the Nemean lion on their heads to evoke Hercules and whatever. They're putting themselves in this mythic splendor and putting themselves in the context of myth. And I think that that's what's really, I think that that's far better than, like, here's me lying under a car, or here's me like, like just in this dirty street. I like to do that too, but I think the mythic is something that we're losing in life. And so that's kind of something that interests me. Like, let's see how good we can make this instead of how like shitty and boring and mundane we could make it. Because we already have that, like, I'm already going to go down to the Fred Meyer and go grocery shopping and see all that.
Right.
Like, everybody sees that, but you want to look, especially like on something like Instagram or when you're reading about philosophy, like, I mean, I think it's cool that I have pictures that look like I might be the one you want to hear that from, like, rather than, like, here's some dweeb sitting in his fucking office, I think that, it brings, we use myth, I think, to get our subconscious. I mean, our subconscious is apparently a dirty word. I didn't realize that until recently, but it's like a subconscious, I guess, is what psychiatrists think of as the woo-woo version. Unconscious is the one that they use technically. So it's aligning, the world of the unconscious, your dreams, and that's where great art comes from, and all this. It's from the realm of the unconscious and the not real, and then using that myth brings that in alignment with what you want for your life. So that's why little kids, like, they want to be a samurai or a movie hero, like, because they've seen this thing and like, that's a great thing to be. I want to be more like that. And that's what myth is, no, you're not going to be Hercules. You're not going to slay a Hydra. That problem on the menu for you. There aren't even Hydras. That's not a thing. They're not real. But the idea of doing that, it makes you want to be better. And that's the whole point of myth. And people, have a very atheistic perspective, which I used to have as well. Like, well, that's not real. It's stupid. And but your dreams aren't real either. Your dreams aren't real. Your mind has a whole bunch of symbolic things that you can tap into, and they can make you better if you get those in alignment. Whereas if your dreams are like, I want to be a superhero, and all you do is stuff your face with freaking Cheetos and Hot Pockets, something's out of alignment there. Like, be a little better. Be a little bit more like your great hero instead of just. I just had this conversation on Instagram today with a good buddy of mine who's writing a lot about the heroic, from the classics, the concepts of the hero, and he's digging really deep into it and playing with it. And so I've met him in person many times, and we comment back and forth on it. And he made a post today saying about, why do classics professors always look like garbage? Like, they're these guys who do nothing but read the Iliad, the Odyssey all damn day, for their entire career. And you're a schmuck. You're like this fat loser who, like, is going to tell us about heroism and whatever. And I was like, well, I don't think it's any different than, the fat kids who sits at home reading comic books.
Yeah.
He's reading about superheroes and whatever. And like, they aren't connecting the two. And I think that, if you can really connect those two things, your dream world with your reality, as much as is possible, I think that you're going to be a happier person, and you're going to be a happier man, and you're going to be more developed as a man and live a better life.
And the big reason, probably the main reason why they look like that, is because there's only one Jack Donovan.
I'm just a fucking guy.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing that I wanted to touch on, is the fact that, you do the pictures, you're a public figure, you're an author, you're a men's author. It's a lot of tough love in what you write. It's a lot of, enlightening, eye-opening things that are right there in front of people. And it's not so much, like you say, you're not a coach, but it's not so much you're teaching or coaching as much as it is you're showing them the forest for the trees. It's right there.
Yeah.
But they're not seeing it. And we can't see, there's a lot of people that can't see today because of the shroud of, feminism running rampant the way it is, that men are just not required to see that kind of stuff anymore. And there's, let alone have a duality. And what you have is a duality. And because I said, you know what? I want to ask Jack on the podcast, but I got a feeling he's an asshole. And I got a feeling he probably doesn't have a sense of humor.
Everybody says that. That's why I think having my stuff on YouTube was good, just because like you could see me, that I'm really kind of a goofball, and I don't, that I do have a sense of humor. And to get back to kind of what you were talking about, say the essay "Violence is Golden," probably the most well-read thing that I've ever written, most shared. The whole gun community loves it. Police love it. Martial artists love it. Whatever. And I guess the tone probably comes off of like, listen, kid, and it probably comes off a little bit like that. And that's probably the way it needs to be delivered. But that's not what it was. I mean, in many ways, a lot of my writing, and that essay in particular, is me figuring the world out. Mm-hmm. Like here, I've just figured, it's like, here's this thing that I didn't believe that I realize now is true. And it's simple and straightforward. And why don't you get it? Because I didn't get it. So it's very forceful in that way, because you need to get this because this is basic.
Right.
And this is me, letting the scales fall from my own eyes. Mm-hmm. And this is just something simple. And it's not me bragging about how I want to live in Somalia. Like violence is gold and I'm going to be a warlord. That's not my vibe. I'm good at taking cool pictures, and I'm good at writing, and I'm good at, I try to be reasonably okay at punching people in martial arts, but, I'm still very much a beginner in jiu-jitsu and things like that. And, I'm a reasonably strong guy, but nothing, there are a lot stronger guys than me. I've worked out with dudes who, squat 800-900 pounds. Mm-hmm. And so it's really, a lot of my writing is me figuring out some basic truths about the universe. And they're so self-evident, I think so not almost inarguable once you have, a certain frame, that, it just has to be very straightforward. Yeah. But yeah, it's not, everybody thinks I'm a dick. Like my jiu-jitsu teacher told me that, like, he talked to somebody like, Jack works out with you? Like, he seems like be kind of a jerk. And he's like, no, he's a goofball, and he makes everybody laugh in our class all the time. Right. That's just, it's a different vibe. But, I think that certain things need to be delivered in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And that people need to understand these basic truths. And I feel like I've had to give a lot of dad speeches that maybe their dads just didn't give them.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I write a lot of dad speeches. I mean, Jordan Peterson is kind of famous for doing that as well. I mean, he writes dad speeches, and a lot of that as well. It's like just basic shit that you needed to hear that either you didn't hear or you weren't ready to hear. Because I heard that stuff. I mean, my dad says stuff like that. I mean, a lot of guys didn't have a dad, or they had a dad who was kind of a pussy or whatever. And my dad is kind of a hard ass in his own way. I mean, not like a badass, like he's gonna beat you up in a bar, but like, I've listened to him talk to like men who are under him. I'm like, dude, calm down. Right. Like he runs big electrical projects and so forth. And I've heard him like, get your head out of your ass. Like my dad's that guy. So I think it's but these things need to be delivered in that particular way, because it is a simple truth. I mean, the idea that, we live in this world where you have people trying to say things are the opposite of what they are because it makes them sound interesting. Yeah. Like men don't have to be strong. Strength isn't an only masculine. Strength is well, actually, for all of human history, they've associated masculinity with strength, and it's part of our biology. That's simple fucking shit. Right. And it's men have always expected other men to be courageous. That is not like lightning didn't come down and give me that magical fucking truth. It just is. Yep. And the whole thing is to challenge that by saying things that seem like unlikely, because people think that the unlikely truth is always more interesting. But sometimes the simple truth is the correct one.
Yeah. And the reason why these things, like you said, are inarguable is because they're not being implicated, and look what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm half tempted to go to Portland tonight. I have some buddies who are going to meet up for cigars, and I'm like, I don't even know if I want to walk around in Portland right now. Not because I couldn't probably defend myself, but because the DA would prosecute me if I did. It's not. I don't want to be in that situation. But I'd love to go down and just get some pictures of what's going on, because all I've been doing over the past few months for this new book, especially, is writing about chaos versus order. And this is like textbook perfect pictures of chaos. What's going on there is pure chaos. Like, we're going to not enforce any rule of law, and the forces of chaos don't build anything. They just destroy.
Right.
And that's all that's happening, is just destruction. There's no creation happening at all. It's just destruction. It's just like, here are these things, that beautiful bronze statues that have been around, and they tore down a statue of a freaking elk. Right. It's not even like the patriarchy or whatever.
Well, it was a racist elk. It was a very racist elk.
Yeah. I mean, it's a freaking elk. It's a beautiful elk in a park, and now it's all covered with graffiti, and the pedestal is broken, and that was a beautiful thing that you'd see in the city for a long time. And people took a lot of time and money went into creating that. And it's been around for like decades and decades. And this uncontrolled chaos comes in and just destroys. Mm-hmm. But eventually it will never create anything, because that's not what it is. It's just people, it's just venting of steam, like some bacchanal that's been allowed to go on for, like, that's only supposed to last for X amount of days. Like, it's just this thing that goes on forever. Yeah. And so it's very much, I really feel that men spiritually are aligned to create order. And that's kind of, one of the main theses, that every kind of order versus chaos. And this is pure chaos, and we're watching it play out. It's not like, we can always say like, oh, well, Somalia or Eastern Europe or something like that, but we're watching it play out before our eyes. Like, if you take all the rules back and no violence is used to enforce them, there's just going to be this rolling chaos of mess, mm-hmm. and no business will be able to be done. No, people's dreams are just destroyed. Like, people who've invested their whole lives in small businesses, just destroyed. And it just, that's what happens. You take away take away the battle axe, and that's what you got. So it's just really, it illustrates, I think, a lot of things that I've been writing about for a long time. And I've had a lot of people send me passages from The Way of Man or Becoming a Barbarian and be like, dude, you were right a long time ago. And I was like, yeah, I know. I know. There's some passages in The Way of Man, that I think are very, come from my place of anger when I was a delivery guy before I stopped working and just did this for a living. I was delivering in downtown Portland every day. That was what I did. And there's some passages that come from that time, when you're a blue collar worker and have to, and show up to get your fucking urine test and show up to get this and and do your fake exercises that nobody cares about and aren't real, because that's what the insurance company wants. And right. This kind of weak world that is being created around you. And this long kind of diatribe in there about like everything that's happening right now, in terms of like, what they want you is inside your house, jerking off to porn, playing video games, not interacting with the world at all, not making yourself better, making yourself slowly sicker, and just being a consumer, like homebound consumer. I mean, I was talking about that, in 2012, and that's all they're creating right now. I mean, that's the life that they're expecting people to live. Just be alone together and have right. Become a homebound consumer, and just respond to the stimuli that we send you through the TV and purchase things, and have no vital existence whatsoever. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's a lot of stuff that I was talking about that now it's like, I wish I would have been not so right. Yeah. Like, I would like to enjoy my last 15 or 20 good years. Right. It's amazing, because kind of like, you don't know what you got till it's gone. You don't know how right Jack was until you read him 8 years later, and it's like, whoa,
why didn't I? Like I said, I wish I would have read it back in 2012, you know, and it made everything just make so much sense. But a lot of times you just don't get, it's right. Like you said, it's right there. It's all right there. And you try. So I've been a coach for almost 15 years, and I try so hard to reason with people about things that are right there, such as I could have retired by now if I had $1 for every time a woman told me that she didn't want to get bulky. And because working as a trainer, that's the first thing. And what I finally started doing was, first I asked, do you have testicles? All right. No. Cool. We got that out of the way. Are you injecting testosterone prescribed by a doctor or not? No. Cool. So what it takes to get bulky is you have to be, one, a man, not one or the other, but you have to have testicles and be shooting up, not both. I mean, not one or the other, but both. You have to have testicles and be shooting up something that is anabolic. You have to have precise attention to detail regarding your nutrition. And you absolutely have to have uncultivated discipline that women just don't have. And I say that to them. Women do not have the kind of discipline it takes to participate in an endeavor that requires sheer, focused, violent aggression towards inanimate objects. They don't have it. They're not born with it. Mm-hmm. So I go into an entire physiological, gender dynamic diatribe about why they can't get bulky. And if you work with 5-pound dumbbells your entire life, you will not change. When women lift heavy, they actually get smaller. That's how it works, because you'll get toned. And then I told all that to this one lady before I got laid off due to the whole COVID crap at the job I had. She came in and I put her through this strenuous workout, and she didn't come back, which is great. But about 5 minutes into the workout, after I told her all this girl had the audacity to say, once again, I don't want to get bulky. So I handed her a 15-pound dumbbell, 15 pounds. Because I just handed her the Parthenon is what I handed her, you know, and people just don't get it, and you're not going to reason with them. Well, now it's gone too far. You can't reason with these people. These people are on a different level of psychotic. This is not just anger. This is psychosis. Because I was talking about this the other day with someone, that you have guys over there who are murdering people, murdering each other, filming it and laughing about it. Grown men go to war, shit themselves and cry for their mothers. And these guys are over there literally murdering each other and laughing about it. But there's not a problem, except for white people. That's always where the blame gets pointed. And it's such a swirling vortex of entropy at this point that not too long ago I had and I don't do political podcasts, I don't do social justice crap, but this is poignant because it's a personal attack on me and people like me. But I took this temp job to make ends meet after I got laid off. And I go to work. It was the second Tuesday. It was the second Tuesday, and they do meetings every other Tuesday. I'm going to this meeting, and I was forced to watch a video about white privilege at my job, which was led by the plant manager, who's white and a female. And everyone in the room was black except for me. And everyone in the room who was black was just as uncomfortable as I was. They did not want to see this. They did not want to see this, because something that people need to understand is this whole entire campaign that's going on right now was started and is run by white people.
Oh, totally.
People who are offended on behalf of other people.
Right.
I myself, that I remember, have never been offended on behalf of someone else. So take my best friend, for instance. My best friend is biracial. He's half black. He's also bisexual. He prefers men. Let's call him gay. Mm-hmm. So if somebody goes up to him and calls him the N-word and the F-word at the same time, I can't. He'll probably be offended, or knowing John, he'll just laugh. But because it doesn't bother him. because he's doing big boy stuff. You know, he's a good father to his daughter. He coaches. He's a phenomenal dancer, teaches dance, all this kind of stuff. So he ain't got time for that little boy shit. But I don't need to get offended. So if somebody runs up to me and just calls me, you know, because I happen to be breathing a white supremacist, John's not going to get offended on my behalf, because it's just not how the dynamic works. We're just going to laugh it off, you know? And I go in there and I watch this video, and it's just this really pretentious black girl talking about, because they've debunked the whole, they say, you know, it's not about slavery, it goes deeper than that. And the tagline was, it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be actively anti-racist. So first of all, we are being told that just by existing, we are responsible for waking up in the morning and the first thing on our minds is oppressing other people, even though that's not at all what we want to do, because I don't care enough about other people to oppress them.
Right.
But it's inherent. It's just there. It just exists because my victimhood. And so basically what people are doing is they're calling me their enemy because I exist and expecting me to fight their war.
Oh, totally.
Which I'm not.
Because the idea that you have to be actively anti-racist is basically saying that you are a horrible human being unless you do what we tell you to do.
Right.
It's just a control phrase. Mm-hmm. And that's all it is. It's a methodical control phrase. It has nothing to do with anything sincere whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, it's them enlisting you, like you said, that's a very good way to put it, to go fight their war. And it's not the war for black people, because they don't want that war that I know of.
No.
I mean, there are lots of like normal, decent, well-adjusted black people that have no interest in all of that. They're not down in Portland rioting. This is spoiled white children.
Right.
I know, it's spoiled children and a bunch of girls. I mean, apparently, a dude told me recently, and I think this was in Portland. I'm trying to think who told it to me, but someone said that a bunch of women thought it would be cool to bring their dogs down there like it's the goddamn picnic, and someone had actually worked on dog rescue, because the mob comes, the dogs are getting trampled. The dogs are getting trampled. They're getting, beaten and trampled and whatever. They're long separated from whoever brought them.
Right.
And, so it's just, it's a bunch of, white women bringing their rescued pit bulls because they think it's going to be cute, this little fun thing that they're having. And then it's real. Mm-hmm. And, it's harmed a lot of dogs, apparently. Yeah. Now, that was the first time I heard that. And of course, it wouldn't be on the news because you would never hear about the people doing those things.
No, it's all the white supremacists.
Yeah, except for they're not real. Like I know, I've done my time knowing white supremacists and what they're about and what they actually do, and they're not down there doing that. No. They're meme lords. They're memeing people right now. They're at home memeing people. They're at home memeing people. They're not rioting the streets and making any of this happen. Mm-hmm. They're wishing that they could, but they're not. Because if they became a real threat, the FBI would pick them off in 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
And so it's not a real threat. It's a made up threat, and it's just a way to control people, and it's really sad. That's been able to go along because it's a divide and conquer thing as well. Let's make the whites and blacks hate each other while we work on some other really horrible, nefarious, evil shit. Let's just let these people play it out. It's a pleb game. Let's let the plebs fight each other and get mad at each other while we, abuse power.
It's voting season.
Yeah. It's so programmed. And I think a lot of probably black guys realize that. They realize that actually their names in community are being used. Mm-hmm. They're being used, and, they're not going to get that money. The money that's going to that, they're not going to get it. That's not going to improve their lives. Mm-hmm. When the cities are full of rape and murder because they've defunded the police, that's really not helping their end game either.
Yeah. And it was funny because when the narrative doesn't work, they just pull whatever they can out of their ass. So it's white supremacists tearing things up. Okay, why would white supremacists be tearing down the statues of slave owners. I think I think they would want them to remain. And then if they're white supremacists, why are you mad because the president wants to shut them down?
Right.
Other than the fact that he's also breathing. But it just they just can't get it right. They're just grasping at straws, pointing and sputtering, and doing all this kind of stuff. And it's terrifying. I was thinking about this the other day. It's terrifying because Hannibal the Conqueror, who earned his name, almost conquered the most powerful nation that ever existed. Yeah. He came damn close. So legit anyone, right? Like a band of angry toddlers, which is about what we have right now, could just come into America and just take us over and just completely destroy us. It's being destroyed from within, like parasites and termites and all kinds of ites. And anybody could just come in and just take us over because it's not the powerful nation that it was projected to be. And the thing that I don't understand is that this legit came out of nowhere. Like, what were these people doing before they got angry and offended on behalf of other people? I'm guessing they were the ones sitting at home jerking off to anime porn and playing video games and doing all that kind of stuff, because now here they are, and then they want to come at it with my favorite, which is toxic masculinity. Masculine men don't act like that. This is pure feminine temper tantrum energy.
Yeah, and as I've always said, if you're actually a threat, they don't shoot you with rubber bullets.
Right.
Yeah, like this is a game that's being played, and they're being allowed to play it because it suits people's advantage. All this is just being allowed to happen because whether or not the United States is as powerful as it used to be or not or whatever, those places could be cleared out mighty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Because those people are not they're not Somalians. they're not little kids who've had AKs in their hands since they were 5. They are not a threat. They have not people from Afghanistan have been fighting wars for their entire history. They are spoiled brats, and a small group of dudes who knew what they were doing could go and clear that place out in a heartbeat. The thing is, the streets would be covered with blood. It could be done quickly and easily. And the thing is that they're not doing that because those people aren't a threat to what the people in power care about. Because if they were, then they'd be dead. Actually, they're in Portland right now. They're doing it's got very political. In Portland right now, they're doing like a catch and release. Basically, I think I read yesterday that the state police are actually not going to protect the courthouse anymore because there was a deal brought in. They got the federal guard out or whatever, and then or Homeland Security out, and then the state police came in, and then basically they arrested a bunch of people, tried to create order, and the DA released them all.
Wow.
So these kids can do whatever they want. And the state police says, well, we're not doing this anymore. We're not going to the line of fire so that we can arrest these people. And then you can just release them all. Right. Because that's what it is. Yeah. It's a little game that they're playing, except for, actual people are getting hurt. And it's also, I just feel for anyone who's, has a small business or something down in those areas. Because, if you're, if Neiman Marcus or whatever is, Nordstrom's, I don't think they have Neiman Marcus anymore. If Nordstrom's is closed for a while, that's Nordstrom. That's like a publicly traded company or whatever. That's a whole different thing. Who cares?
Yeah.
I don't care if they don't reopen. But, when you think about what an actual small business is, it's somebody who's saved up, who probably did some shitty job for a long time, saved up, a lot of money and invested everything they have to do this one thing.
Mm-hmm. And
they bust their ass for 10, 12 hours a day to do it. And everything they have is being destroyed by these people for a game. And but honestly, if they support it, because there are a lot of them, because it's Portland, there are a lot of them who are like, we support this, or they're just afraid to say that they don't.
Of course.
We support this. So it's okay that you break all of our things, and if that's what your attitude is, I hope you die in a gutter. I hope you die as poor as you possibly can.
Yep.
Because that's you you deserve what happened to you.
Right.
You know, like if you support that, you deserve poverty.
Yeah, pandering gets you nowhere. It gets you absolutely nowhere because they don't care. They don't care that you support them. They're still going to tear up your shit.
No, they don't.
Couldn't care
Well,
less.
what they tear gassed the damn mayor. I mean, well,
Right.
the mayor got tear gassed, but they, obviously not by the groups, but the mayor got tear gassed. But part of their demands is also to get the mayor out of office. So like he went down and tried to support them, but they don't care.
No, they're pulling down elks.
Yeah.
This is the furthest thing from rationality that this country has ever seen. So you can't.
It's a riot about a thing that didn't even happen there.
Right.
Yeah. Like
it's like, what do we want to be mad? Why do we want it? We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. We want to be mad, and you've just paid us a lot of money to do nothing but sit home, and so we have plenty of time.
That's right.
And you locked us up, and I really think that like instead of being mad about stuff that they're not going to change, and that it really is not, it's something they're not really interested in. I mean, they should have been mad about being locked up.
Right.
And that would actually be productive and check some people, I think. But instead they're just doing this little game.
Yeah. Well, to lighten the mood, how are you able to keep up with your workouts? Are the gyms open?
I actually have a provisionary home gym. It's not my favorite. I prefer to work out at a gym and not at home. But I do have a home gym, and I've slowly been acquiring more weight as it is able to be acquired. I mean, that's the whole gym industry the whole home exercise equipment industry blew up.
Yeah.
And so they're all making tons of money. So I have enough equipment to go and make myself work out at home every so often and get some stuff going on. So it's not really my main focus right now. But I've, a certain amount of maintenance I have to do to be me.
Yeah. Cause I asked, cause you look bigger. Could be the camera angle.
What?
Oh yeah. You look bigger. It could be the camera angle.
Oh, yeah, I'm wearing white.
There's that. Yeah, there's that. White adds 60 pounds of muscle.
It expands. I mean, I used to be a lot big. I used to be a good, I would say 5 to 10 pounds of muscle bigger than I am now. I try to stay pretty lean so that over time that, you lose some mass just for that. And then every once in a while I'll go through a cycle of lifting heavy, when we were really locked down, instead of just kind of half-ass lockdown, I was doing I was like, well, I'll just try to get my overhead press up to 225 again. And so that was, because that's the only lift I really, really, really like, that and incline dumbbell presses. So like that, those are my two. And so like I focused on the overhead press because I had enough weight to do it. And so I worked on that, and I got it up to 225, for a few times. And then, now it's probably not there anymore, but, because that's not a static number that you get to keep forever.
No, and overhead press is not like bench press or deadlift where you just like one day you wake up and it's like, oh, 20 pounds. I'm 20 pounds on my lift, or on squats or something like that. You just don't, because it's my favorite lift as well. Yeah. And I mean, it's slow going, but I made it to 185 because I'm 6'2", but I walk around between 185 and 200. So I'll fluctuate. It's hard for me to keep on mass. I got up to whenever I think when I finally got to 185, I was weighing about 190 something. So it wasn't technically a body weight press. That's what I always wanted. And that's the thing. So you start chasing these numbers, like, I want to get a body weight this and a body weight that. Now you start gaining the weight. And you're like, shit, I can't keep up with my goal because I keep getting bigger. First world problems. So here in North Carolina is one out of 4 where the gyms aren't open. However, this is the stupidest shit, man. So gyms are able to operate as long as the members have permission from their doctors, but they're not allowed to ask for the doctor's note. So basically they can just go in there and work out. Ergo, gyms are technically allowed to operate. Yeah. But a lot of them are still closed. So I don't know if it's more of a liability thing or because it's like me, I technically don't have to wear a mask. A lot of places I don't, but I don't have to wear a mask because bipolar is now considered a disability, and people with disabilities also have respiratory issues. I spent the first 6 months of my life in an oxygen tent, so I get winded sometimes, especially when it's hot like this. And I technically don't have to wear a mask, but I do in a lot of places because I don't need, Karen and them hollering about, why am I not wearing a mask? Because they can't enforce people with disabilities explaining to the general public what the disability is. In other words, I don't have to tell you. I don't have to tell them. Right. I don't have to tell cops. I don't have to tell anybody. Yeah. But I don't want to deal with it. Plus, I'm not one of these alpha dorks who's on Twitter every 10 minutes saying, I ain't wearing a goddamn mask. Great, wonderful. You're like the toughest guy I ever met. You ever read Way of Men? I mean, whatever. And that's all they do all day, And I just don't really want to deal with it. So if I go to Food Line to get a steak, I'll pop on a mask and I get my steak and I come back home and I take it off. Big freaking deal,
Well, yeah, I mean, the mask thing, I was super mad about. It was funny when it was I made a joke about it. I made a video that was a joke about it when it first started, before it was mandatory. When everybody was still scared, like what the fuck's going on? And now that it's like obviously bullshit, then I was mad about it. And so I basically did home arrest, like voluntary home arrest for like a month, because I was like, I'm not doing it, So I was that guy. I mean, I wasn't online saying it like I'm not doing it, but I think that's going to be around, at least in this state, well into the spring.
Oh yeah.
Because of the election and then flu season. And so I think that's going to be around. So I'm going to have to function. So I just got some bullshit thing like neck gaiter that I'll never be photographed in because I'm not doing that. But that's my lie.
Right.
Trump caved on that and I'm not gonna.
That's right.
Like some hunting neck gaiter that I pull up over my nose while I walk in and walk out. And the main reason being like, I probably would have done the dick thing a little bit because I was mad. Mm-hmm. And I probably would have done that if I lived in a bigger city. Yeah. But again, I don't need to go down and yell at the old ladies. Like, I don't need to be the guy standing at the line in the grocery store with like, fuck you, slave. Like to some 80-year-old lady who's just trying to like paid $12 an hour to just deal with my shit. No,
right.
That is not solar.
No.
I'm not going to do that. That's how I felt about it, but that's not what I'm not going to do that and put that on people who are not in charge of that decision.
Right.
So, like you're going to do, people are going to do what they have to do. I mean, I feel bad for people who have to do it at work all the time. And that's their whole fucking thing. I mean, I found we have a place you can drive through and get beer, like out through the window. And I go to that place to get beer sometimes, I'll do stuff to avoid it whenever I can. Yeah. But I'm also like, I'm building stuff on my land. I need to go to Home Depot. And I did the curbside pickup for like 2 weeks, but it takes like an extra hour for them to figure it out.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, and I just want to walk around the store and figure out what I need and go. So, eventually I'm like, I'll do that thing at that place and whatever. And you make whatever compromise you have to make because you have to get stuff done in life. But it's super bullshitty. But, people do what they have to do.
Yeah. I mean, like guys like me, I love to I do furniture restoration as a side hustle. And I like to just go around and it's like hunting. Like I'm in the hardware store, I'm in Home Depot or whatever. I'm just hunting. I'm on the aisle. I'm looking at fucking light switches, man. I don't know the first thing about electricity, but I'm in there and I'm just hunting for something. I'm like, man, this is where we belong. This is to be in here. I got to pick my stuff up on the side of the curb. It's like, nah, man. I mean, we had to go get a grill for my mom's boyfriend not too long ago, and it was just chaos. And the lady that came out, she had an attitude. She didn't know the first thing about grills. She walked out, and the first thing out of her mouth is, "I don't know anything about these." It's like, why are you here? I mean,
yeah.
But yeah, I feel your pain on that, man, because that's the interesting thing too, because at Wald Gang, for a long time on your Instagram, like every other story picture was you with a set of post hole diggers. And I was like, this dude digs more holes than anybody I've ever seen in my life. I hope you name those things like Bessie Lou the post hole diggers.
It really wasn't
because like
that
every
man, but
time it was like for I think you did like 10 a week, like back at it again, digging holes, and it's like, what in the hell is he doing? You know, what all?
No,
do you
actually,
have
I
out
avoid
there?
digging. I avoid digging the holes half the time. I mean, the structure that I built, this past one that I'm working on right now, I should have put posts in the ground. That would have been the correct way to do it. But I was like, I'll just frame it up sitting on some bricks. That'll be fine.
Right.
I'm not doing it. But then I'm also building a fence out there, and so we had to do the post holes for that, so I can take my dogs out because they killed the next door neighbor's lady's chicken, and so like I have to fence them in now. That's a pain in the ass. But yeah, I mean, just building stuff. I mean, and that's a funny thing too. I had a guy ask me, like, where do you learn framing? Like, where did you learn that? I'm like, I don't know. I looked it up online. I'm like, I don't have any construction training whatsoever. And people are like, oh, it's amazing that you build this stuff. I'm like, all right, not really. I mean, I don't know how to do all this stuff really. I'm just like, I build everything with deck screws and like I just put it together. Like, what's the best way to do that? And then, you've done it a few times. You're like, well, I wouldn't do it that way again. And then you start to get some stuff, and then you go into Home Depot and get nerdy about Simpson ties. And like, oh, well, I could really frame up this corner really nicely if I had a Simpson tie. Right. And so you get into all that shit, and it's that's why I have to wander around Home Depot. But get ideas of how to do stuff better. Yeah, I mean, it's been cool to work on those projects, and I really enjoy doing that. I think I would love to at some point later in life be at a point where I can just do what I really am, which is I'm an art director. I mean, at this point, I mean, I'm a writer and an art director, really, right. more than an artist myself. Like I'm good at I hire this guy to do that thing, hire this guy to do that thing because they have the look of the thing. Because I know what the vision is, but I hire the people who do it better than me. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I'd like a place really like build stuff, but my job, like I'm not really. I just did it because there's no one else to do it, But not that like I just do whatever I can figure out how to get done, and it could be done better, but I don't have time to fuck with that, and I'm not doing it that way. Right. Like I even know how it could be done better, and I'm like, this is good for what we're doing, But right. I'd love to have a budget later, I may move at some point and leave Waldgang there for someone else to manage, and then build, a concrete ziggurat in the desert, or like something that I can't do myself, like right. That I have to get funding for and build. I think that would be more permanent than the structures that I have out there. I mean, I've done pretty good for someone who had never built anything before. I built a shed in my backyard, 4 years ago. Yeah. I think I've done pretty all right. People are always, like I said, how do you learn how to do this? I'm like, it's like anything else. You just have to give a shit and then go figure it out.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I know it looks like an outhouse, but I swear it's a temple.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like I make many fine sheds. Right. And part of that is by design too, because I so that I don't have to get them permitted. They have to be under 120 square feet.
Okay.
So everything is shed size because it's technically a storage building. Right. And so beyond that, then I have to take plans into the county and do all that kind of stuff. And I'm not getting involved in that. I don't want them inspecting stuff at my land, like that shit. But so everything is a certain, size, so that's why we've done stuff that way. But yeah, I'd like to be not confined by that at some point in the future. That'd be cool. Because we could do a lot of good stuff. I mean, I'm looking at all this brutalist architecture and shit, and it's made for a terrible purpose. But man, it would make a good temple. There's some of these brutalist sculptures out, like big monuments out in Serbia and shit that are like, I'm like, that's what the Father's temple would look like. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Absolutely.
So I would love to do stuff like that eventually.
And you love to travel. Where have you not been that you would like to go?
Oh, lots of places. I was supposed to go to Switzerland in June, and obviously that was not possible. I had my flights and everything booked for that, and I was supposed to go to Switzerland and actually stay in the village in Sils Maria where Nietzsche wrote Thus Spake Zarathustra, and go visit the house where he wrote it. And that was all on that was my itinerary for the summer. That was going to be fucking rad, and get a bunch of cool photographs and see that space. And I was hoping to have the book done so I could write the introduction there, which that would never have happened anyway, because it's nowhere near done yet. But yeah, that was kind of the idea behind that trip. And that I didn't get to do that. Now, I don't know if that'll ever be on the picture again. Cause as my interests move, I mean, I would like to go there. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But whether it's going to be prioritized in the future, I mean, now it's like, now I kind of want to go to Greece.
I do. I want to so bad, man.
Yeah.
I swear oh my God. And what's funny? The cost of living there is about the same as it is here in North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
I was looking up apartments and whatnot in case, one day down the line, I wanted to move there. And it's surprisingly, it's not that expensive, but I kind of feel like, honestly, when you and I can't hike up mountains anymore, we're in the rest home, this whole mask shit's still going to be going on, travel restrictions and all this kind of shit. It's still going to be, I told you this shit was going to happen, Jack.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at him. Fuck you, lady.
Exactly.
Because at that point, we're 90. We don't give a shit anymore,
Yeah.
You idiots are still wearing these goddamn masks. Yeah.
God damn it, Maud. You've been doing that for 30 years.
Right. Oh, my God. Yeah, there's places I'd love to go because I'm not going to say a recluse because that's just creepy. That word's creepy. But
yeah. It's very silent.
I tend to be introverted. I do this podcast to get myself a little more extroverted. It's like I tell people, if I have the one I did last week, I talked way too much, but my guest was really good. This young kid who's just way ahead of his time. And if the guests are good, I'm going to open up. But like my mother and I have this joke. If it's up to me to carry the conversation, humanity's fucked. It's just how it is. But I just, I never really had the desire to go out and do and all this kind of stuff. But I do want to take like a 7-day cruise, to Greece. And because I think they drop you off in Venice or something and you go to Greece and you come back and fly on. And see, I hate flying, man. I'm terrible. I have to get stone cold drunk out of my skull. I have to get pre-drunk before I board the plane. And then on the plane, I have to drink the whole time. And then I have to drink after to recover. It's the heaviest I'll ever drink is any kind of flight itinerary is involved. Yeah,
well, that's just kind of the fun of going to the airport. I mean, I tend to do that, but not because I have to. I like flying, but I don't mind flying at all. I'm actually kind of a pro at going through airports at this point because I've done it so much over the past few years.
Yeah,
I'm one of those people that they're taking off their shoes and way before they're even in the line, I have them untied. I'm like ready to go. I'm like wired and everything. But I do. Yeah, I don't mind flying. I do like drinking in airports. But who knows whether we'll be able to do that and stuff in the future. But there's so many places that'd be cool to go. The tricky thing is to not just make it all tourist stuff. I'd really love to be like a lot of these guys who travel to go do something. I'd like to do more of that in the future. But it's just a matter of arranging it and picking what. I mean, the thing is, America itself, I mean, if we're confined here forever, I'd love to go to Europe a bunch more because I went to Germany like 3 times, but now I'm ready to like branch out. And, there's so many places that might as well be Europe, in terms of, like the landscape, the whole, area near where I live. Obviously I live I live on the dry side of Middle Earth right now. And then, and that just gets more Middle Earth the more you go up into Canada. And then it gets pretty spectacular. And then in between you have the Rockies and you have, and then Utah is alien. Alien and cool. Like I'd love to live in Utah. It's beautiful. And all the red rocks and stuff. And outside of Vegas, and there's just a lot of places. I mean, when I was younger, I probably would have gone to be like, I want to go to this city or that city. And I still like doing that. But, you know, there are probably so many cities in America that you need to see. They aren't really that different.
Yeah.
You know, the cities are kind of whatever. It's like, oh, we're going to go have a nice dinner and have some drinks in a different city. Okay, whatever.
Right.
But, you know, it's more like, you know, the places where you can go do some stuff. I mean, hopefully, you know, if, you know, depending how things are in the next year or whatever, I'd love to be able to be like, hey, I'm just going to go travel and go do jiu-jitsu with this guy in this one place.
Yeah.
You know, or like something like that, and do a little bit more of that where it's not just about, you know, visiting places. You know, when I was younger, I'm like, I'm not going to visit. I'll just go live there. You know, like I lived in New York City and lived in San Francisco and lived in LA. And now, you know, I can't do that as much because, you know, I have dogs and stuff. But it's definitely, I think, I'd love to do things that are more like active, like, hey, let's go fly to this place and hike this mountain, or stuff like that. I think that's, I don't know, it's a very much more masculine, I think, way to vacation as well. You know, like whether it's not vacation. I mean, I think, but for me, it's all work. Like my next trip is I'm going to Florida again. I'm just going to go hang out at the 21 convention. I'm not speaking this year.
Okay.
But I'm just going to go hang out because, you know, we were talking about groups of men and like who understand what you do. I mean, I get to see a handful of guys who are some of the only guys who actually understand what I do, you know, what my job is, you know, like, you know, dudes who are speakers, like my buddy Tanner from Utah. I mean, he'll be there. And, you know, those are the guys who actually know what I do, where I fit into the picture, what I have to offer. And so it's good to just, you know, we all create content. We all know what we're doing. So like, it's, you know, it's good to hang out with people who, you know, are professionals in my industry, I guess, you know, like, so it's a good vibe, and it's nice. It'll be turning fall. And so it'll be nice to be in Florida right about then. So. Oh
yeah. Yeah. I haven't been to Florida in probably 7 years, but when I went to St. Augustine. So right there, as soon as I drive into it, but yeah, St. Augustine, and it's just really cool. It's just a kind of, and I don't even really like beach atmosphere. I'm kind of more of a mountain guy. So I will also probably be doing one of those Instagram falling off the mountain pictures eventually. Yeah. And but yeah, it's just really cool. And the beach is I don't know, the beach looks a little bit different. There's palm trees. You don't really, there's like a lot of things about America contains some exotic things that you don't expect to be there, like palm trees. You expect palm trees to be, you know, in Cambodia or something. Then you drive into Florida and you're like, what the fuck is a palm? Oh my God, there's thousands of palm trees here. Where the hell am I? And, you know, you just don't, I had never, like, anything blows my mind. Like I said, I'm a stay home kind of guy. So if I get outside of my comfort zone and go somewhere and I see something cool, it's like when you go to the mountains and you get real apple butter. They have this giant witch cauldron and they're just churning it. The hillbillies are churning it. Can I get you? Give me a mason jar full of that stuff, you know? And you get it from there, and it's not like the shit you buy at Publix. Right. It's real legit stuff. And it's just, when I was a kid, because I can just eat apple butter like Winnie the Pooh eats honey. I mean, I don't care. Right out of the jar with my hand.
Man, I don't think I've even had that for like 10 years.
Oh, Jesus.
But yeah, go on.
It'll probably make you rethink your egg white and Velveeta breakfast. You'll want biscuits and apple butter. At least to add to it.
I can tell you the macros are wrong on that right now. But I'm not 6'2". I don't have that like metabolism thing where I can't keep on weight.
I noticed that. I noticed something. I was watching your shoulder workout video, and I'm like, is this trainer really tall, or has Jack been lying to us?
No, Ethan is actually really tall.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually is. He's actually at least 6'2".
Okay.
He's a very big dude.
Yeah.
And then I had somebody, it's so weird, people's perceptions about shit. Like, I had somebody comment on a post the other day, like, I saw you standing by someone who I know, and I didn't realize that in real life you're really short. And I'm like, I'm 5'10". I'm not really short. I'm only short to people who are in like the high sixes, you know, like, I'm not a short person, you know, but people always expect that I'm going to be like 6 even. Yeah, I'm 5'10".
I was thinking between 6'1" and 6'3".
Yeah, okay.
And then when I saw the video, I'm like, this guy's like 5'5", man. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, that's just because Ethan's tall. That's just because Ethan's tall. That's funny. I guess that maybe they have it because of that. But Ethan's just a really tall dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a normal sized man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just I mean, taller than average. So I mean, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was a good video, by the way. But do you eat? How do you stand macro counting? I used to do it when I was back in the day, and I just couldn't stand it anymore. So do you have your stuff really dialed in, or do you have a little bit of play in there, or is it just this is how I eat and this is how it's going to be, and I'll do whatever I got to do to keep it this way?
I have definitely abandoned the need to care about the taste of food.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, like I had Paul Carter do my diet when I really wanted to get lean for the first time many years ago. And, so I've ever since really been doing some kind of variation of what he gave me. He does another thing. I haven't even checked it out. He was on my podcast recently, and he did a thing. He does a lot of carb cycling and stuff now, which I would probably benefit from. I had to adjust some stuff because I was going on a real strict bodybuilder diet for a long time. And then I found that, I wasn't getting enough carbs. So the point where my buddy who studied that in school, he's like, hey, your brain needs like 120 grams of carbs a day to function. And I was like, oh, well, I've been hovering around 70. Maybe that's why my brain's
it all makes
cloudy.
sense.
Yeah. Maybe. So I try to keep that above, more towards 150 now.
Oh, wow. That's still kind of low.
Yeah. I mean, basically that's what I do for my diet. I mean, everybody always asks me, and it's just boring. I use my Fitness Pal. I put in what I want my really protein number to be, and then my protein number, my calories. Okay. I will start to lose weight at 2,200 calories, and I will really start losing weight at 2,000.
Okay.
And so right now I'm still hovering around 2,200. I might drop it down for a couple weeks just to kind of peel off an extra layer. And then, then I'll probably cycle that and keep going until I go to Florida.
Okay.
And, so I can kind of be lean when I start that trip and then, eat whatever and do whatever I, need to do when I'm there. But yeah, I mean,
definitely.
Basically, I think that people make it like it's rocket surgery.
Rocket surgery.
But I try to keep my protein over 200 grams a day. And then if depends on what calories I'm in, and then the rest is all like it figures itself out. I don't really, obviously I prefer the carbs because I feel like I need them to the fat, but and that's just what I need, that I've found over years works for me. Yeah.
I was the same way because if I drop my carbohydrates, I'm just tanked, and I don't respond to dietary fat very well. Like if I can eat like 3 slices of bacon and be full all day, and it's just a miserable feeling. And I love bacon, and but I'll have like bacon and eggs for breakfast by itself, and I don't want to eat again until that night, and it's awful. And I never had much of an appetite, so I always had to force myself to eat. But I got down to 6.5% body fat a few years back at about 60% carbohydrates. It was the craziest thing. I didn't know that happens, but it just depends on who you are. Some people run better on fat. Some people run better on carbs. It just kind of depends. And there's this myth that you got to eat, 5,000 calories a day, and you got to eat 600 grams of carbs a day and stuff like that. And a lot of times the reason why that is that guys are on heavy anabolics. I don't mean TRT. They're on heavy anabolics up in the milligrams. And, they're able to process 500 grams of protein and 900 grams of carbs and things like that, And I couldn't imagine having to eat that much, dude. Jesus.
It's definitely it's a lot. I mean, you get used to eating less. I mean, I could easily throw down 5,000 calories a day because I like to eat. If I ate 5,000 calories a day, I guarantee you that I would be a giant fat piece of shit. I've been an ugly 230 before. I've never gotten really, really fat. I've been a bad 230. It's been a long time, but now it's like, I've looked pretty good at 215. But now I just find that I like to be a little lighter, especially for doing jiu-jitsu and things like that. I mean, I just feel like I move a lot faster, and I'm just generally more athletic. I wouldn't want to be lighter than I am right now. Like I don't like the idea of going much under 190,
right?
For the size that I like to be. But I was trying to keep it in that space, and then it just becomes, people on their first diet, they're like, climbing the mountain for the first time, and now it's just like an ongoing game of maintenance and like, where do I want to be at and whatever. It's like I'm not competing in anything. I'm not, I don't have to get down to 5% ever. It's just like I have to like not look like shit with my shirt off, and then and be reasonably strong and athletic.
Yeah, exactly.
Maintaining that, because it's a high quality of life. It's cool to have that option. It's cool to like feel good about yourself, and you just keep it at certain realm. And, that's the thing too. Like you were talking about numbers earlier, like, a lot of guys, like it's exciting to focus on PRs when you haven't had any. When you're just started lifting and you're like, and it's always a deadlift, right? Like, cause that's the first thing that just goes up so fast for dudes.
Right.
Oh my God, I'm lifting 300 pounds, and they've never done anything like that. So it's so exciting. But like, I got up to like 535, like 1 year. And I know I could train to do more, but
why?
Yeah. I mean, it's not really. I mean, I'm not competing in powerlifting. It's not. It'd be cool. It's a cool thing to say that I did. But I have a buddy who's now he tore a whole bunch of other shit, and so like now he's working on his deadlift. He's going to try and get it up to 700, and he's about my size and we've always been similar strength. So, it's a fun thing to do if you need a project. That's the thing with fitness stuff. You need projects. Because otherwise it's just like doing laundry. It's you're just got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it to just not be a piece of shit. Basically.
Yeah, and you got to think about your why too, because if you're competing in powerlifting, then you probably need a 500-pound deadlift. But if you want to look like Jack Donovan, then you probably don't need to go through all that stuff. I mean, and risk, because I've seen things get pulled at light weights, man. Like my roommate from Atlanta, his brother, like 6'4", 250, big, huge dude. Had a 600-pound bench press. Popped his pec, warming up with 135. Because that's how it works.
That's how it works. Yeah, it's always something fucking stupid. My buddy, he had the surgery that I would really like to not have if I could avoid it. But it happens to dudes my age and just happens more, as you get older, which is the bicep pop.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's lots of dudes do that. I think Matt Best, I just saw, he just had it happen to him. Like he's doing the thing where he has one tiny arm and one big arm. It's just something that happens. But, I use straps for that reason. Like I don't switch grip anymore with it when I deadlift, or I use straps for a lot of things just because I'm like, I don't need to be doing weird fucking shit with that.
Your arm is not supposed to externally rotate like that and stay in that position and pull on something. It's just not.
Yeah. So I just try to do smart. I'm not training my grip. I do get enough of that with jiu-jitsu like that. I mean,
and post hole diggers.
But yeah, the dude who my buddy actually blew his bicep out slapping a girl on the ass.
Wow.
He had been carrying 300-pound treadmills on his fucking arm for like a decade. But the moment in which he broke it, in which the tendon snapped, was him slapping a girl in the ass. So I just think that's hilarious but that's how it happens to everybody. I mean, I have a buddy of mine who broke his arm squatting, and I watched it happen, and I can't tell you to this day why it would have happened.
Yeah, you can't make that up.
Yeah. I mean, if I watched it, it was pop, and you could hear it the whole way through the gym, and like it wasn't even his heaviest weight, and but his arm snapped right here. Like, weird shit just happens, and it's going to happen sooner or later. I've been pretty lucky with shit like that, but
I had a guy come in and it's like, I got you a new client. He's going to be joining the class. And he tore his bicep recently. So I'm like, cool, this guy's probably pretty hardcore. He walks in, he's this little frail dude. And walks over. He's like, yeah, I tore my bicep recently. I said, well, how'd you do it? You deadlifting or something else, carrying a TV.
Yep.
He just grabbed it and pop, there it went. TV. And so
Yeah.
I think it was like 180-pound TV. I think it must have been one of those like CRT TVs. It wasn't a flat screen, I don't think. Because I had one of those. And it weighed $180 all day long. Because I looked it up. I'm like, why can't I carry this fucker? Because I weigh 180. That's why I can't carry it. It's like carrying a person.
Yeah.
So before I get to the questions that people asked, some of these I don't really know how to approach them. But what can you say about the new book?
What can I say? I've probably already said too much, really. I mean, I've done it on podcasts and so forth. And I actually have let a few people read the early drafts. But basically the whole concept of it is I was obviously approaching things from our Germanic perspective in terms of Voldgang, in terms of doing ritual and things. And that seems to be what people were interested in that I was doing. And I was going to write a book about, my perspective on all that, write a book about the gods, write a book about that. But then as I got into it, I mean, there are a couple of problems. One being, if you stick purely with the Germanic stuff, unfortunately you get a lot of dudes who really just want to be into Vikings because they hate Jews, like they really aren't, they want a thing for white people. And I just don't want to deal with those guys anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of ruins that for me. And also the more you research, the way things are connected, to those really, if you don't just keep yourself in that box, like everything's Germanic, then you start looking at all the different gods, and you start looking at the Greek stuff and the Indo-European stuff and how it's all connected. And then people stay in the Indo-European thing because they feel like that's their heritage, even though it's so big, at that point we're talking back so many generations. But then so they get fixed on that, and then you like start looking at Mesopotamian gods, and they're also sun gods that wield lightning and and fight demons. It all becomes very similar. And so basically the idea of the new book is that I'm talking about men's spirituality in the way that I did in The Way of Men. Okay. Basically the Way of Men was really for all men everywhere. And it was very, there was stuff about from the Epic of Gilgamesh in there, and as well as the history of Rome, and they pulled it together for all men, and talked about something that was very universal to men, that wasn't linked in one time and place.
Yeah. And
so I'm approaching masculine spirituality in the same direction, like from our place in history that we're sitting in now. Where we can see all this, because back in the day you didn't know, unless you're sitting in the Library of Alexandria, you didn't know all these other religions and exactly what they believe and exactly what they were doing, and you can't see how they're related and how their language is similar and overlaps. But we can see all that now. You have Wikipedia, you can see that on Wikipedia. Like you can follow all that there, and so that information is available. So that's our place in history, and that's our fate right now. And to be able to look down and see all that. And so if we can look at all that and say, what have men always cared about? What have men always held up as their idols, as the greatest versions of themselves? Because that's really what gods are. I mean, they're the idealized versions of us. And, and so, there sure is always a sky father, and that's like the father beyond your father, really. Like the idea of what a father is, that can't just be your dad, because then you're just copying your dad. It has to be an ideal of what that is, And then, there's always been, the warrior aspect, which is really everything I talked about in The Way of Men. Like guard the perimeter. That's what we've always had to do. It's always been our job. It's always been something that's been idealized. And that guy is obviously imposing the order that's created by the father. That's his job, is to protect and defend and champion that order. And then there's also always been once you have that and it's protected and defended and the order's been created, then you have to keep it going. Like you have your fertility gods, and you have your gods of, like your blacksmith gods, and the guys who just, make life happen. Yeah. And Plato talked about that in the Republic, the idea of, this kind of guardian class that has, the counselors and the auxiliary, the military and the philosopher kings. And then under that is like the merchants and the traders and the people that really make life happen, and give them anything to protect.
Yeah.
Really. And so there's always a figure like that. And in the Germanic system, it's Frey, it's the fertility god. And so I've kind of created a third archetype for that. And I'm like, I think between those three things, you talk about pretty much every big picture thing that men have to deal with.
Yeah.
In life. And I think that, there are things that, black men and white men and Asian men, and there's a lot of Asian stuff that gets mixed into there too. Like that, then you get into Tengri and the Mongols gods and, like the gods of the steppe and all that. All these things start to get really related. And so you can have something that like dudes who are focused on being men, because that's what's really, I think, under attack in modern society. It's not one group of people, it's not race or whatever, but we really, men who want to be men is my area, that I deal with. And so I want to serve men who want to be, excellent at being men and being good men. And so I'm trying to create something that appeals to that. And so that's basically the whole concept of the new book. And I'm pretty excited about it. It's coming along now. It was a tough one because I really feel like it would be a lot better if I had a PhD in comparative religion. But,
right.
That's one of those things like, if I had another 15 years, this would be magisterial.
Yeah.
I really think it's something we need now. So I'm trying to get it done now because I think, especially now, we don't need a whole bunch of little weird things, divisive things. I think men who care about freedom and masculinity and whatever, we all share a lot of the same problems. And so the guys who are going to be Christian are going to be Christian, and that's just how they're going to be. But there are a lot of people who aren't. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of pulling something together to say, hey, how about this? Mm-hmm. And seeing if people will respond to it, whatever. And I think that a lot of guys, I think, are interested in whatever. It pulls into that solar thing that I've been talking about. So I'm excited about it because it's very positive and it's very it's positive, but with this still being masculine because that was the problem I think with something like King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, is that it's based in pacifism, and the guys are pacifists and they're kind of feminists and
absolutely
they skew some things. The big thing is like the mature masculine in those books, and what is he says in the book, like if I don't think that the mature masculine has ever been realized in society, all of history. And I'm like, then you're wrong.
Right. It's inarguable.
Men have never been mature in all of human history. You're wrong. Like that's your example of maturity is literally something you just pulled out of your ass.
Right.
So I think that, I think it'll be good and I'm excited about it. I'm hoping to get it out by November.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm really looking forward to it. When you posted the cover, I was like, yeah, this is going to be some good stuff. And I hate we didn't touch too much on Stay Solar. People should go out there and read it because to me, it really hit home for me, especially for things going on now, that we touched on. But it's when you make that comparison to like the sun is hot and it's violent. Okay, we talked about the sun, and it's made of fire and storm. Okay. But it retains its shape, its path, its gravity, and the system of order that spins around it. And if men read that and don't get it, like right then don't get it, then something is wrong because that's who we are. We are fire and storm. Like I touched on earlier about the whole desire, the desire to have an orgasm is a desire to create. That's what it is. We're creators, we're conquerors. We have that violence in us. It's not toxic. The things that they call toxic are feminine energies that effeminate men like temper tantrums and outbursts and things like that. True masculinity is aggressive, but it's also very calm and it's very warm. Actually, it takes a warm man to raise a boy and to raise a daughter and to provide and to protect. You can't be cold and protect because you don't give a shit.
Right.
So exactly. A lot of people need to read Stay Solar, and Stay Solar has. Like you said earlier, it caught it. That shit went viral, man. Everybody's talking about it. I mean,
good.
I'd like to see
it do more because I think it's very it's just a positive message, and it was the right time when I put it out, and it was before all this shit happened, and now it's really the right message.
Yeah.
And it's been a challenge for me. It's been a challenge for everybody. Like, well, what is that thing that I told people to do? You got to do that. So I think that's very, it's a good positive message. And I think that, and it's simple. And I'm good at that. I'm good at doing simple.
It's one of your best works, man.
Yeah. If you don't get it, like it's right there. It's simple, but yeah.
Exactly.
But anyway,
And I can't remember. I don't remember if it was Paul Carter. No, it was Ajak. Ajak posted about it. He said that Jack Donovan wrote this thing about staying solar, and then Ajak wrote like an aside to it, like a little extra to it, because he's all about that stuff. Alexander Cortez.
Oh yeah. I really like him. I've hung out with him a bunch, and I really like him, and he does it now. Bastard. He was in Egypt. And then I got stranded, and then ended up having to go to Thailand. And now, like, while everybody's all fucked in America, he's like, training Muay Thai every day.
Yeah, with Sagat.
Yeah,
with the man himself.
Yeah.
So I know it's crazy to see people living out there, living their best lives. We're living the dream, but he's living his best life.
Yeah.
So I asked for questions for Jack Donovan. I got some damn questions. That's good.
All right.
So I don't think this was meant as an insult, but it kind of reads as an insult. So I'm not going to say their names just in case. What was the biggest single mindset change that took you from flaccid artist to current physical condition?
Flaccid artist.
Flaccid artist, man.
Oh wow. I mean, like I said, I've had to become, obviously what I write about. And so that's, I try to do what I write about to the best of my ability, and to the extent that it makes sense. And so, obviously I wanted to embody the ideas that I'm talking about, which writers don't always do, but I always felt that I should at least try. And, but I think, probably my interest in masculinity happened, came way before that, but my interest in physical training probably came a few years before that, as I was probably writing my first book. So it was, something that I became more interested in doing. I always worked out off and on for years. A lot of people work out, they don't really know what they're doing. And so they're just doing whatever men's health fucking thing that they read and whatever. And that's what you do. And that's what most people do. And that's what I did for a long time. And then as I wrote about this kind of stuff more, I started seeking out people who were better at doing this kind of stuff. And that's really the direction.
So, I'm vaguely familiar with him. You may be more than I am. What are your thoughts on Mencius Moldbug? I read Becoming a Barbarian and found some of it read like a primer for reactionary thought. His as in yours, Empire of Nothing seems to have some crossover with Moldbug's concept of the cathedral.
Yeah. I mean, the cathedral's kind of expanded out into popular culture to a certain extent. I had someone use cathedral with me when they were talking to me the other day. So yeah, some of those ideas have percolated out, and I think that his first, I guess he went away for a while and then he's back or something. But, I mean, he was around in the same circles of writing, I think, when I was maybe writing The Way of Men. So there was some of that stuff out there. I find him not fun to read. He's just one of those guys who seems, like on the spectrum, and he's, like just blocks of text. But I mean, obviously the cathedral is a good one. That very much describes what's happening in a lot of places, and parts of society. And, so he's obviously made some really good observations. I don't know how much I've been influenced by him. Perhaps, like I said, through osmosis as much as anything, because I've probably been to his site probably a handful of times in my whole life. I don't follow him, but I'm sure it seems he's had some interesting and relevant things to say.
Yeah.
Like everybody asked me if I read Jordan Peterson, and I'm like, finally, it was one of those things that I just resisted forever because I just got tired of being asked. Like I knew who he was, but I'd never even watched a video of Jordan Peterson. So I'm like, I've been writing about this stuff since 2012.
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not a product of Jordan Peterson. He's doing his thing and I'm doing my thing. And I really haven't been influenced by him at all. But we're just saying some of the same things because they're right and they're obvious.
Yeah.
And so eventually then I was going to go be interviewed by someone who had interviewed him. And I was like, well, I'll watch this interview that this guy did with Jordan Peterson. And I'm like, oh yeah, I like some of the stuff he's saying. All right. And then I tried to read one of his books and I was like a little bit like, it's kind of like, this is really my thing. But, like I already know all the stuff that we agree on. And then the other stuff, I'm like, I don't care. So, but yeah, anyway, next one.
Yeah. And, that we actually answered two questions in one because that was one of the questions. What are your thoughts on Jordan Peterson?
Yeah.
But and I think a lot of the reason why is because it's kind of a spiderweb effect because you have the Jung and then you have Campbell and then you have Peterson and you have Donovan and there's a lot of things that go together that line up in that. This one is actually from an account on Instagram, Unapologetic Masculinity, which is really a good account. So people should go out in there and follow him. He's a really cool dude. And his English is a little broken. I'm going to try to, do you believe in God or are you, all right. The way he typed it, do you believe in God or are you standing both evolution and pagan creation stories? Basically, you've touched on this a little bit, but basically, I guess you could say, how is it you believe? And then, is evolution involved? Are the pagan creation stories involved? How much of that is actually literal? How much of it is, metaphorical? What is your approach to, religion, spirituality, ritual, things of that nature? Because I know, like a good buddy of mine from the church, when he does ritual, it's not like anthropomorphic, gods, things like that. He does it more. He does a lot of rune work. He focuses a lot on runes. So kind of, I'm not sure if he does Galder or not, but his focus is more on the more spiritual aspect of it as opposed to the religious aspect of it.
Well, yeah, me and my, collaborator, Clinton, very much, and I've been this way the whole time, even out the land. I don't have statues of gods out at the land. I don't think it's wrong. I just feel like I wanted to start with the concepts more than the anthropomorphic thing, and I think that I think that the literal belief is a really belief in this actual guy who does this actual thing is a really easy way for people to picture something that is really part of ourselves. And whether or not it's bigger than ourselves. This is the way I would phrase it. If it's something like this is pretty fucking eternal and it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
When we talk about, like, say, the whole Skyfather concept, it's changed name a lot. The name keeps changing, but the concept's there and it's eternal. Right. And so I think that that's been around for a long time. So I think that you can look at that, whether or not that's man projecting outward or picking up something else. I'm not going to make, absolute determinations about that. I mean, I definitely feel like whether it's, some kind of super ego or, collective consciousness or whatever that I can tap into. I mean, like, there's weird stuff like, why have I been able to do why is this weird flaccid artist been able to write this book that all these men around the world say that's right, that's it. I mean, that was a super normal thing that I was able to do. So I allow a realm for that. And so, but so absolute literalism, I think, is a little bit foolish because you're dealing with ancient scripts, and whether it's Christianity or the Eddas, which are copied by a Christian and made up by a Christian, and who knows what, like, to take that literally, I think, is weird fundamentalism. Yeah. It's very strange to me. Yeah. But to take the overall big picture and use it as a message and use it as a something to meditate on and to invoke. Because that's what people want when they're talking about spirituality. They want something bigger than themselves.
Yes.
And so you're invoking something that's ancient.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that these things are ancient that I'm talking about. So whether I was calling it Odin or whether I'm now calling it the Father, or whether I'm calling it Thor, or I'm calling it the Striker, I'm still talking about the same thing. So that's, as far as evolution, I don't even think figures into it. I think evolution, I mean, I don't have any reason not to believe in evolution. Like that. That I don't have to get into, do I really think that we're like, made from pieces of a giant, or, made from trees or whatever? No, we're probably chimps, like that, I'm comfortable with that. And I don't think that contradicts anything.
Yeah.
Because it only does if you're like almost, if you're weirdly fundamentalist about something that you have the knowledge, because we sit on the mountain where we can see every goddamn thing. And that this is copied by a Christian, and that that there was some influence there, and there's other things going on. And I had Matthias Nordvig on my podcast the other day, and he's been a done NASA through all his life, and he is also he has a PhD in this stuff, and he's like, I don't think Frey's real. He's like, I think it was added in late. I think it's a late addition from all my evidence that I have. I don't think that's actually even part of the mythology. And I'm like, I had people
that makes sense. I had so much sense.
I had people have existential crises and write me and be like, do you believe that? Because we have something in our backyard, like for Frey, and like, what do we do? And I'm like, I do think the fertility thing is a part of it. But yeah, there's always been a lot of scholarly debate about when that got added in or whatever. So, you have to take this stuff literally, like based on a translation of a thing that was written by a Christian, seems absolutely absurd.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're not talking about eternal concepts. So that's where I would be with that question.
Yeah, that I'm going to have to drink just to deal with that, because I knew something was off about that guy. Not Matthias, but Frey. It was like, why is he's like a, I don't know. It's like Freya makes sense, but Frey just didn't. It's just like something was, and now this is going to fuck with me, man.
Well, see, I think it pulls it all together though. I think that because in my pantheon that I'm working on now, I'm calling him the Lord of the Earth. Mm-hmm. And Frey is obviously a word that means Lord. Mm-hmm. It's like you can have the Sky King, you can have all the warriors and whatever, but someone has to be around to get the work done. And lords are over, whether it's your property or your farm or whatever, the guy who makes everything actually fucking happen. Mm-hmm. And isn't just like like the Sky Father's at the CEO level.
Right.
Whereas like you need a manager, you need a manager. Because you don't want to make it a pleb god. Because God should be plebs, right? So, but you need a manager. You need a manager who's in charge of like making the crops grow and then making sure that we have a harvest every year and all that kind of stuff. So I think it fits into the big picture of what is necessary, and maybe that's why it was worked in, or maybe it was, who knows? So many of these mythologies overlap. Where something came in from the Celts, and where something came in from the East, and so how much of these things moved up because Greece isn't that far away. Like there's obviously maybe the ruins came from the Etruscans. There's all these things where these cultures were not static. And they did trade and they did bounce off ideas off each other. So a lot of that's all in this. So I think that the fertility thing is necessary and it needs to be there because we're animals and we're connected to the earth, and we aren't, spirits flying around. We actually need to eat and shit.
Right. Exactly. I actually read recently, it was a pretty cool article about, I don't remember where I got it. It might've been a book. Hell, I don't know, but how they trace the runes back to the early Hebrew. Way primal Hebrew. And I'm like, wow, that's that. And I always knew I had a connection with Jews for some reason. And it's like I consider you guys the original pagans,
so many people were trolled by that. I'm sure. But yeah, you look at it and it's there. Like the Solila room is a lot like Sigma. And then it goes back to, I believe, Shin in the Phoenician.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, it's very, once you can see that, you can't unsee it. And you're like,
Right.
oh, okay, well, you can either accept that or be like, no, that didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's there.
Have you read The One-Eyed God?
Yeah. It's really weirdly written. It's not read it doesn't read like it's meant to be read even straight through. It has some cool ideas peppered in, but it's kind of incoherently written, I think.
And it was written by a professor, so it's practically a textbook. It's a curriculum pretty much, and it's almost like reading House of Leaves. You got to turn it upside down and hold it in the mirror and all this, and then you got to look up, well, how do I translate whatever this is? This is written in, I don't even know what the hell this is written in, Swahili or something. Let's see. So this is very paramount here. I would love to hear about would love to hear about how to find meaning as a young man soon approaching the crossroads of life. And I think that means transitioning, young man transitioning into older man and time to get some shits done. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because that's, like, is it like high school to like, college?
You need the devil to tune your guitar.
You're talking like 20 to 30, 29 to 30, like whatever.
Yeah, 30's young to me. Shit.
I know. Yeah. I'm like, I say we're talking about midlife crisis because I remember that year. And is it like there's a lot of transition, a lot of crossroads that you're gonna have to do. But it's I mean, the world's weird right now, man. I would say, like, for a younger guy trying to focus on getting shit done, it's again, finding your mission is the biggest struggle, I think, for young men, and finding what you're actually about and what you actually care about, and letting the other shit go. I think is really important, because I think that that's the biggest struggle that men, I think, have is deciding on a direction to go, and and what they care about and what they don't care about, and what what are you caring about just because other people care about it. And there's some value to that if they're people who are close to you or people who you admire. But if they're just other people, what are you doing just because other people are doing it versus the things you're doing because that's the thing that you're going to be better at. And we talked about that a lot at the beginning of the podcast in terms of finding what are you good at and what are you just not good at. So stop fucking doing that.
Right.
Or stop trying to be like, you're 5'2", don't try and be a basketball player, like that, like that kind of shit, like that. Let's look at what you have and what you don't have, and I get that question all the time from, I mean, this is not exactly the age question, but I get guys who feel for whatever reason, and a lot of this is probably projected. I mean, whatever, that they think that they are either they're handicapped in some way, which is okay, that's real, or they just feel like they're like poor physical specimens or whatever, and they'll just never do that. So, I think a lot of that is bad self-talk. Yeah. I mean, because then you have all these guys who are like handicapped and competing in sports. Right. And so there's things that you can do, but you also do have to accept what your limitations are. That's correct. But don't create them. A lot of people create their own limitations, and that's a big problem. I mean, there's a lot of just like narratives that you have, like, I'm not the kind of guy who can do this. And so you aren't, whereas like, I think the most exciting thing with young men, especially young men who are maybe more nerdy when they started out or whatever. I mean, I've watched this happen. And it's really exciting is when, I've done it with myself. Like the moment where you go from like, I'm just trying to do this because I think I should, to I could actually be good at this. Yeah. Like there's a moment where that happens, and that's a cool moment. Because it crosses a threshold of like just forcing yourself to do shit because you think you have to actually believing in yourself. Yeah. And believing that you have some potential to actually be proficient in something, like someone like me, like when you start out lifting, you're just trying to like, I should lift some things, and then you're like, I'm fucking strong. You get to a point where you're like, I'm fucking strong. I could go compete in a thing if I wanted to. That's available to me. Whereas at the beginning, you wouldn't have thought that. That's right. So getting to that place where where you're like, I could actually get kind of good at this is a neat thing to do. But it evolves, so you have to make sure that you're not limiting yourself by self-talk, and actually you're putting in the work to get to the next level before you just give up on it.
Yeah. The key is, that's why I rebranded as Mission is Legacy, because the Primal Fire was a great name, but I couldn't do it in an elevator pitch. So when you have Mission is Legacy, I mean, if you don't have a mission, that's your problem. That's why I battled depression for so many years, because I didn't know. I kept trying to do all the shit I was bad at. And I'm a coach. That's what I have to do. And everything I do has to be geared towards that. And if you don't have that mission in life, you're really not going to go anywhere. I mean, it's paramount that you find your purpose. If you don't have a purpose, men need a purpose. I don't know if women need a purpose. I really don't know. I saw a girl on Instagram. She had like 357,000 followers. All her pictures were selfies. All of them. She had more selfies than you had pictures of posthole diggers. This girl had nothing but selfies. And so a lot of, like they say, women have to show up, men have to perform. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, it's, you got to get that mindset right. Cause I beat the hell out of myself for so many years, and the truth is always in the middle. So you cannot do anything you put your mind to, because that negates your gift that you were given by the divine. On the other hand, it's okay to try to go learn new skills. You may go through 100 before you find that one. I know I can do more than coach and play guitar and sing. I can do some other stuff. Just got to figure out what it is. But the key is to get in that right mindset to go from flaccid artist to fine physical specimen. That's what it's all about, man. Yeah, mission is legacy. That's right. Or as I said at the beginning of the podcast, because I'm tired, mission of legacy. Fucking idiot. All right, so here we go. You've always been into the arts, even when you were flaccid, and the depth and meaning of things. And you thought Jung was your guy. Then you read the Red Book. What did you think? And I know you kind of put that out there on Instagram. So for those who didn't see that post of you sitting there with the book that was 8 times the size of your head, what did you get from that book, and what did you not get from it?
I was thinking I need to sell that on eBay before people run out of money.
Yeah.
But it's like a $160 book. Get that out of here. It's no, I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautifully written. It's a neat project. It's a neat part of history of the history of psychoanalysis. And, but personally, it's, I just felt like we had a very feminine influence to it. And, maybe possibly even an Eastern influence, some ideas that I don't like, that I feel are corrosive, or maybe just not the ideas that we need right now. I think that, you don't really need to tell young men at this point to be one with the universe and, like to get in touch with their feminine side,
right?
Because they get that message every single fucking day.
Sure
you need
do.
to tell them to fucking do some stuff and lift some weight and become stronger and more courageous and so forth. That's the message that they need to hear. So we don't need that message. And so I feel like, I see these guys and they're running these Jungian retreats and so forth, where they're coaching these guys to get in touch with their shadow and all this stuff that people do in that realm. And I just feel like that's taking dudes down a bad road. I've seen some of the pictures from him. I'm like, whatever's happening there should not be happening. You need, men need some kind of interactive ritual experience like that. But I think that the idea of let's get in a circle and share our feelings is very feminine. And so there's just a lot of things that came out of Jung that maybe he didn't even intend. Because I think that, if you read other parts of his work, he is measured about some of these things, but the way that it's evolved and been put into the culture, I think that I much the idea of archetypes obviously we get from him, all these, and I think that that's very real. But I think that they can be, you can use those things in a negative or positive way, and I think a lot of people take them up in a very negative, weakness inspiring, direction.
Yeah, it seems like they're literally worshiping weakness at this point. They're just trying to make men as weak as possible when, I mean, we're all they've got. I wrote an article called that did really well. It's called Cannibals at the Gates. And it was not politically correct at all. And it it really opened a lot of eyes to, it had this dude in booty shorts twerking in the streets, in this very effeminate pose. And it started with, this is what you have. This is what stands between your women and children, you and your women and children, or the barbarians at the gates and your women and children, because to get through, this is what they have to go through. And that's something that we touched on earlier about everything that's going on now. If Hannibal almost conquered Rome, what the hell are we looking at? And we're being destroyed from within, and then all something has to do is come from without. And it's terrifying.
That dude is getting a huge amount of validation, and I guarantee that he has as many, way more Instagram followers than I do. I had an assistant back in the day, and he, I get excited about like getting up to a level because it's a video game, Instagram, right? And like, you go, oh, I got up to like X amount of followers, or all right, fuck you, and because you're playing the video game, and so he's like. Yeah, like, well, just keep in mind there's a little gay guy shaking his ass on Instagram who has like 300,000 followers. And it just puts everything in perspective for you. Like, oh, I guess I'm not even a big deal. So it's, that is affirmed in the culture, and that is a lot of what they're seeing. And that's easier. It's easier to be that person than it is to be disciplined and to force yourself to do things you don't want to do and all that. So it's very, it's a lure for, I think, young men, to just be goofy and silly and just, being weak is the easiest thing to be in the world.
It is,
you don't have to do anything.
Mm-mm.
Like just be weak and kind of like things and kind of care about things and, like enjoy television. That's easy. Making yourself do things is a lot harder. So
yeah, like the whole Pete Buttigieg campaign where the boys are in the street and they're doing a little dance, a little clap, and they go, woo! Boys don't woo. Like girls do that when their BFF walks into the bar after she's had 3 drinks and she throws her hand. Men's hands should never go above their ears.
I agree. I actually that's funny because I've always said in my commentary on men dancing, like it's generally like that's the line. That's the line. Your hands don't go above. You don't go above your ears. You can look masculine doing this,
right?
This,
The only time your hands should go that high is when you're trying to catch a football. That's it. That's the only time.
Yeah.
So last one, what are your thoughts on mentors, and did you ever have one or several?
Yeah, I've had a lot of weird mentors in a weird way, but like strange, infamous mentors. But and so I'm not going to even mention them all.
Right.
But I've found my way in some weird places in life. And all 3 of the people I can think of have big names, so I'm not going to mention any of them. But in the way that, I think mentors are important. It's a double-edged sword, I think, for the mentor, because, what do you get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
It can be very gratifying, and I like mentoring people, but it also can steal your soul. Right. It can also like take everything from you because then you invest in somebody like they're a child, and they're not. And so then that can be a problem. But, it is good to have mentors in a controlled way, and obviously if you have a jiu-jitsu coach or a martial arts coach or something like that, that's a mentor, in a very formal way. And, but then also, over years that becomes a very personal way. I think a lot of those guys who've been with the same professor or whatever for like a long time, they have a personal relationship with that person. So, that's part of their friend circle, and they go to him for certain things. And, so that's good to have. Obviously, seek out, mentors in the thing that you want to be good at next. And the tricky thing about mentors is there are a lot of young guys who get confused about what that means because they think they should look for a mentor. And so they go to look for a mentor. And what you also have to think about when you do that is what do you bring to the table? Because there has to be an exchange. So if you're like young kid has no money and just wants to be mentored by somebody, what are you going to do? what are you going to bring? So that there's some reciprocity in that relationship. And it's not just somebody giving and giving and giving and giving. And so, I think that's really important, is to think about, having what you bring to the table and not just be asking for things. Because young guys make that mistake a lot. Like I want this, so therefore I should have it.
Right.
Is a bad approach. The smart ones will be like, I can do this, this, and this, or I can help you with this, or a lot of old guys. If you need a mentor, a lot of older guys that need some web help. Like there's things like that. Like
call a 4-year-old.
I can help you with it. Yeah, like I can help you with this. I mean, like like there's certain. I mean, people come to me for that. I've guys who aren't good at that kind of stuff who come to me for like, what do I do? And I'll tell them how to set themselves up for something or whatever. Yeah. I'm not great at that, but I mean, if someone wants to be mentored by me, I got some projects I can give them right now. It's there's definitely room for that. I think that it's good to have guidance from someone who knows more and has experienced life a little bit more. And it's a struggle, I think, as the older guy, because you can look at the situation and be like, that ain't gonna work how you think it's gonna work. Like, because you've already been through that, or you've seen 10 friends go through it. But you can only tell them so much, because they're going to do what they're going to do because of their own thing.
Violence is golden.
Yeah. Anything. There's so many things in life. You can just look at it and you're just like, well, I can see how that's not going to work out for you. But you go ahead and give that a try.
Right.
But if there is a lot of value to get some of that experience to save you some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Train your rear delts. Like there's all kinds of things. Yeah. I wish I would have done it at your age. Like that kind of shit. There's just things that you like wish you would have done that you can help other people do faster.
Definitely, and that's that's why I became a coach, and that's why I remain a coach, and I'll do it. I do it for free. I do it to get paid. I do it for whatever, and it's always great, because you'll have these instances where you'll put a post out or something. Because when I was in high school, I prevented one of my friends from committing suicide. He came out of the closet, and he didn't know how to handle it, and and it wasn't as if he was really odd. He was a really odd kid, and he came out. He told me, like, I was the first person he told, and he said, "I'm gay." I'm like, I know. And he said, I don't know how to go out there and deal with this. And I just kind of talked him through it, and it's not for them, it's for you. So it's only for you. It's your business. It's your thing. You want to come out with it. You're doing it for you. It's going to make you feel better. You're going to feel like an outcast, but you already feel like an outcast now, because you're holding this thing inside that means absolutely nothing. Gay, straight, who gives a shit? But he was ready to go, and I finally talked him back. And I mean, and 20 years later, he's like, man, I still remember that day, man. I just don't know what I would have done without you. And when you go out there and you think of something that's really good, and you tweet it or you post it or whatever, and it's like, well, this is not getting any engagement. You posted at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. It was a dumb idea based on your analytics. And somebody comes along and private messages you and says, I really needed this today. And you don't know how many people you've passively talked off the ledge. Yeah. So you have to be able to, that's something good to bring to the table. Like you said, you got to bring something to the table. But I like to consider myself a mentor. Sometimes I'm paid for it, sometimes I'm not. But like I said, if it wasn't for Nathan of Barbarian Rhetoric, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So it's something I never thought I'd do. Like, why would an introvert start a podcast? Well, it's to give other people a platform so that they can talk about, how great they are. Right. It gives them an opportunity to, talk about how they were once flaccid and now they're hard as stone, that kind of thing.
I feel like this is going to start a rumor that I have like erectile dysfunction or something.
That's, when he said it, I'm like, of all the words to use Jesus. But I think it meant savage. He probably meant struggling artist. I don't know, because most of us artists struggle. We struggle.
He's trying to be poetic about it.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. All right. So I want to thank you for doing this. This has been really great. I got a lot of people that are looking forward to this. I don't think they're going to expect the amount of silliness that ensued, but that's who we are. You can't have a serious chat all the time.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, these things are kind of fun. I like being a guest better than I like being a host. To be frankly,
I kind of do too. Yeah, I've been on a couple. I'm gonna be. You were on. Weren't you on Chance Lunsford podcast? He's from Utah. He Logocentrifugal. He's he is on the spectrum. He's a high functioning autistic, and he runs a podcast. And I can't remember if he said he had you on or not. But if you were and don't remember, I'm sorry, Chance. I didn't mean for that to happen. But I'm going to be on his, and he's way up here. He's just, and I don't mean out there. He's right there. He's tunnel vision, but his IQ is just off the charts. And he's very, when you talk to him, you see him, he pauses and he goes, well, and then he goes into his thing. So I'm looking forward to doing that, because the conversation, people always expect me to be to be Coach Jay. That's what they expect me to be. When I talk to Chance, I get to open up about, other things, the darkness things and everything. And I put myself in a box. I put myself in a box with Primal Fire, and it didn't go the direction I wanted to go. I was only going to interview people who struggled and then found success. And I was like, I want to interview everybody. I want to interview, the Jack Donovans. I want to interview the, whoever, the Hotep Jesuses. I want to interview all these people. And then I, rebranded, but I come from a really dark place, I guess you could say. And I get to talk about that on the podcast. I'm not just the coach anymore. I'm not just the guy, because you never see that on social media. You always see everybody's great lives, Yeah. You don't see them falling off the mountain. You just see them perched up there enjoying it with the sunset and everything else, And so I think when I get on his podcast, I think I'm gonna fall off the mountain. So, and take everybody with me. They're gonna be like, "What the fuck? I didn't know that about Jayson. Holy shit!" And but yeah, it's the dynamic, the duality dynamic that you have is really cool, because, like I said, it's kind of cool that people just assume you're a dick, because when they finally meet you, you're not any different than what you write about. You're calm and collected, you're down to earth, and you're friendly. I hope that's not an insult.
No.
Because friendly may be synonymous with flaccid. I'm not sure. But yeah. So yeah, Jack Donovan does not have erectile dysfunction. So we don't know what our friend meant. We're just going to assume he meant struggling artist and up and coming artist, and things of that nature. So really looking forward to the new book when it comes out. We'd love to have you back on at some point in time just to go over that kind of stuff, because that's just so much. It's so much, and it's going to be a lot different than the previous writings, which I think all your writings evolved anyway, because becoming a barbarian was one thing. Start the World. Wow, that's not a book. Way of Men was another thing, and then More Complete Beast just completely blew itself out of the water. And now we have this one coming up, which you've been building up to. Yeah. I don't know if a lot of people noticed it on your Instagram, but you've been building up to this book for a while. I just knew something was going on.
Yeah, they take a long time. They take a long time to write. But it's to do it right and to feel like you're framing everything the right way. But, I'm excited about it, and I think that it's going to be. I definitely do feel that over the course of my writing that I have been talking about the same thing in an increasingly refined way.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like it's like over here and over there and over here and over there. I definitely think it's, I've definitely been talking about masculine idealism since I started, it just in a increasingly refined way. And I've gone off some tangents, but that's putting the eagles in the sky is what I've been writing about for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That one I've yet to read. I'm going to get that because you don't have it on Kindle yet. So I'm going to get that just go ahead and get paperback.
It's just some collected essays. Yeah. I should probably redo it at some point, repackage it a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So where can everyone find you? Social media, website?
Yeah, I am. Instagram is at Start the World. My website is jack-donovan.com. And that's really all there is. I'm trying to build a mailing list on there, but I don't send out mailing very often. I'm always amazed by the guys who do. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Like a lot. How do you know what to say every day? But yeah, so that's basically Instagram and obviously I have a YouTube channel with videos of my podcasts. I'm on a break from podcasting right now, but videos of my podcast, and I've also done some videos of just concepts.
Yeah.
So I've done like a video for Start the World and one I call Chiaroscuro. And that may be a direction I do more in the future because I like doing the production of that. And I like things to be tight. I've been told I'm too Apollonian. So that's I do like things to be smooth and tight. So but anyway, yeah, so the YouTube channel is you can just Google Jack Donovan, whatever, Start the World. It'll come up.
Excellent. Get out there, follow Jack, get his books, be on the lookout for the new book. And for myself, Jayson the Argonaut, and Jack Donovan, this is the mission. I can't say the name of my own fucking podcast. This is the Mission is Legacy podcast. Have a great day.